Draw is coming up Sunday afternoon at 3 from the Jolly Giant. We would love to include you. And just got a text here from Shar, one of the organizers. 1,966 tickets sold out of the 3,200 printed off. The 50-50 is over $60,000, $60,150 to be exact, and it's all got to go on Sunday. The 50-50, those are 1 for 10, 5 for 25, or 15 for $50. The grand prize draw ticket for a shot at $50,000 or the $60,000 in lotto cash, that's a $50 ticket. We've got subsidiary draws. We've got a great second prize draw of $10,000 cash or $14,000 in the recreation vehicles and more. Visa, MasterCard, 1-866-PAYDIRT, 1-866-729-3478.
For this afternoon, mix of sun and cloud with areas of blowing and drifting snow, a high of minus 18. Wind supposed to pick up to about 40 clicks by early evening. Tonight, partly cloudy, down to minus 23 overnight. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, light winds and a high of minus 18. For Friday night, we're looking at mainly clear. Going to be really, really chilly, down to a low of minus 27. Saturday, sunny all day with a high of minus 18. And for Sunday, partly sunny, a high of minus 17. Followed by Monday, it's supposed to warm up, partly sunny at times with a high of minus 7.
Broadcasting from Century Studios in downtown Regina, Harvard Media presents The Sports Cage, where Saskatchewan comes to talk local sports. Brought to you by Access Communications, trusted in rural Saskatchewan for internet, TV, and home security. Be part of the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262. The Sports Cage. Streaming at sportscage.com, our YouTube channel, and on the radio at 620 CKRM.
Hoo-ha, the Thursday edition of the program, or I guess it's Friday, is when Jim Van Horn used to say that. You're probably too young. You probably don't even remember Sports Desk. I'm Brendan McGuire, pinch hitting on the Thursday edition of the Sports Cage for Access Communications, trusted in rural Saskatchewan for internet, TV, and home security. Coming up on this edition of the program, we will check in with Sharky's NASCAR report. Glen Suitor in press coverage coming up in hour number 3 as well. Benny Walchuk with the SJHL report. And we will also get into more of this Olympic stuff with Arash Madani a little bit later on. And Scott McAulay, the head coach of the Regina Thunder, will join us in hour 1. Some off-season moves happening with the Thunder. Of course, you can always join in on the conversation through the text line or by calling us toll-free at 1-866-767-0620 or on the text line at 306-936-6262. I'll try not to talk too much about that women's hockey game in case you missed it. Canada losing in overtime. They will settle for silver. How much you want to bet that what's-his-name is going to brag about this for the Americans winning, and then if we win the men's gold, we won't hear from him again. But we will wait and see how that all pans out. On a lighter note, we go out onto the Western Pizza hotline, and we are very pleased to be joined by Three Down Nation insider John Hodge from the great city of Winnipeg. John, have you been watching the Olympics? Have you been watching the curling?
Oh, I've been watching a ton of it and loving it. I've been doing some freelance coverage for the curling group of the men's Olympics, so it's been fantastic. I'm a passionate curler myself. I don't play at a high level, to be very clear. I am an amateur, but I've always loved the game, and it doesn't beat Olympic curling. I mean, I know a lot of people love the hockey, and don't get me wrong, I got nothing against hockey, but I'm a curling guy, always have been. It's my winter sport, and so it's been a blast.
I think that's a good thing that you don't play at a high level because you wouldn't have a shot anyways, because Manitoba has the best curlers, and even in a province like Saskatchewan, we can't even compete with their curlers usually. I'll try and take my mind and probably a few other people's minds off the hockey game loss, and we'll talk a little bit of football. Hashtag isn't May yet. Training camp still 3 months away. We haven't talked since the free agent frenzy. Was there one team that jumped out at you for who is the biggest winner and who is the biggest loser?
Well, I mean, I think it depends how you grade it, right? The way that I look at free agency is like a net basis. So what I mean by that is did your team improve or not based on free agency? And, I'll bring up the Riders just because this is, of course, the Saskatchewan Network. This is home of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I thought the Riders got worse, but I also don't think they really should be blamed for that. This is a Grey Cup winning team, a championship team, a first-place team that had 44 free agents to re-sign, and I thought they had a ton of success in doing that, bringing back their key guys. Essentially, the whole starting offense is back. The only real departure is Dante Myers, and there's not much you can do about that when he gets an offer from the Cincinnati Bengals, right? It's not like he went to the Red Blacks or somewhere else in the Canadian Football League. So when you look at talent in versus talent out, I think you'd have to talk about the Ottawa Red Blacks as being a top team. They didn't really lose any veterans. They didn't really lose anybody it seemed that they wanted to keep. And I actually thought they were smart to not keep certain guys who were maybe a little bit long in the tooth. Maybe the club had, fallen in love with a little bit and held on to for a bit too long. They've brought in like 12 guys. I think it's 13 now if you include Martez Ivey, who got cut by the Edmonton Elks. My only criticism of them really shortly after free agency was I don't think they did enough to address the offensive line, but bringing in Ivey, a guy who I thought was the best offensive lineman in the CFL in 2024, had a down year in 25, so needs to bounce back, but thought he was great in 24. And then Gregor McKellar, a guy who, again, didn't have a great 25, but has played really well in the past, winning 2 Grey Cups with the Toronto Argonauts. They've now done that. So when you look at a net basis, right, talent in versus talent out, I think the team that got the best and improved the most was the Ottawa Red Blacks.
And they probably needed to be the team that improved the most, or one of them anyways. We're chatting with John Hodge from 3 Down Nation here on the Sportscage. One thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately is the fact that the Saskatchewan Roughriders have never repeated as Grey Cup champions before. And I know that's going to be a big motivator this year for the squad and the players who are coming back. And I was kind of reflecting at the other 4 championship teams and what they looked like the next year and what were their chances of repeating. So you pointed out that the Roughriders regressed, deteriorated, whatever term you want to use, which is not unusual for a championship team, especially one like theirs that had so many free agents disappear. Would you compare, how would you compare this team to those great Winnipeg teams that you saw, and maybe the one in 2021 under very unique circumstances that was able to repeat? And how would you rate the Riders' chances to repeat at this point based on what you know about the roster?
I think they have to be Grey Cup favorites right now. And again, I think they got worse in free agency. And I think that's fair to say when you look at the talent that was brought in. They didn't bring in nobody, right? James Letcher Jr., I think, is a really exciting returner. James Vaughters, I think, has some game left at defensive end. But obviously they lost some great players, right? And that is bound to happen anytime you win a championship. And despite those losses, I really do see the Roughriders as the best team in the CFL right now. I would pick them to win the Grey Cup if I had to pick a team. Certainly out of the West, I think, I'd like to see a Montreal Alouettes team with a healthy Davis Alexander all year, but I do think the Riders should be the favorite in the West Division on paper right now. I think it's really interesting the way, actually, Brendan, that they prioritize their offense. And the reason I say that is, like, Corey Mace obviously is a defensive guy. He played defensive line. He was a fantastic defensive line coach for many years in the CFL prior to becoming a DC and then, of course, a head coach. And he's won a Grey Cup as a defensive line coach, as a defensive coordinator, now as a head coach. And I think it'd be very normal for a defensive assistant like that to say, okay, we're going in a free agency. Hold on. We have to re-sign Malik Carney. We have to re-sign Habakkuk Baldonado. We have to re-sign Micah Johnson. Bring him back. He's still playing at a high level because the most important thing is keeping my guys together, my unit, my defensive line. And instead, the Riders literally did the exact opposite. They brought the whole offense back and most of the secondary, not all, but most of the secondary back. And I'm really interested to hear Corey Mace talk about that. He's going to talk about it at the Combine next month. I'm looking forward to our conversation, or at least I fully intend to ask him about it, which is, again, a lot of coaches, kind of their pet position or pet side of the football is the one that I prioritize. And the Riders were the exact opposite. So, the offense is going to be great as long as Trevor Harris can stay healthy. I think there's some concerns about the depth behind him, but honestly, I think most teams in the CFL should be concerned about their quarterback depth right now. And defensively, this team has shown time and time again that when one guy goes, they can find someone to replace them. So I think this is going to be a team that, whether it's practice roster, whatever else, they're going to load up and go, okay, we lost these 3 or 4 household names along the defensive line, but we've got incoming guys who are going to become household names, and we trust Corey Mace and his staff to develop them and make them into those household names.
When I just thought of something, when you look at head coaches around the Canadian Football League right now today, I suspect that there are not too many who have a stock that is higher than Corey Mace, with maybe the exception of Mike O'Shea, just because of his proven track record, etc. The fact that he's going to continue to run the defense, and he'll probably always, whether he's the defensive coordinator or not in future years, I suspect he'll always have a lot of input with the defense. If he's able to keep this train on the track, despite players aging out and the rollover in personnel, would that boost his stock even further as one of the great defensive minds and one of the great defensive coaches in Canadian football?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, he did earlier this offseason pass off the title of defensive coordinator to Josh Bell, his longtime colleague. I mean, a guy who they won a Grey Cup together as teammates in Calgary. They won a Grey Cup together there, I believe it was as coaches, and then they overlapped in Toronto and, of course, now in Sask. But I fully agree with what you're saying. Corey Mace is obviously still going to have a strong say in the defense. I think he'd be a fool not to use his own expertise in that regard. But as for his ceiling, I mean, he's still so young. Like this guy, I believe he's the same age as Trevor Harris, maybe even a year younger. He's got such a bright future. And when you look at his connections to a guy like Marshawn Lynch, who he played with the Buffalo Bills and is still in touch with, good friends with, I do wonder if, and I'm just speculating here, this is not inside information to be very, very clear, but it is something I've wondered about, is as the confetti was falling, right, at Princess Auto Stadium, in November, just a few months ago, it's like, wow. So this is a guy who had tremendous success as a defensive line coach, tremendous success as a defensive coordinator, and now has had tremendous success in a very short period of time as a head coach. And we know, for instance, in 2007, Kent Austin parlayed his early success as the head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders into an exciting opportunity in the NCAA. I believe he became the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss and then the head coach at Cornell, if memory serves. So if I'm an NCAA program or even an NFL program, right? I mean, we saw Chris Jones do it when he left Saskatchewan after the 2018 season. Like, it's not super common for these types of things to happen, but that's 2 examples in the last 20 years of Rough Riders head coaches taking opportunities elsewhere. And honestly, Brandon, I think this is one of the reasons why, many reasons, why the CFL operations cap needs to go, right? Right now, every team is constricted in terms of what they can pay these coaches. And I had this conversation with Henry Burris. Our podcast episode at 3 Down Nation is going to be up with him in the next little bit. But he's somebody who's right now looking for a job. And one of the reasons that he sees as an impediment to potentially come into the CFL is that operations cap, which limits earnings. So again, I'm not trying to create a story here. I'm just saying, from a sheer speculation standpoint, what Corey Mace has done is so impressive, whether it's head coach GM in the CFL with another team, whether it's somebody from down south, wanting to recruit him, wanting to hire him. I could absolutely see that, just because he's had so much success at such a young age.
I'm probably more pro operations cap than most people, and maybe more than you are, but I totally get what you're saying. It not only restricts the ability of a potential coach like a Henry Burris to have earnings, but also he's not just thinking about himself, he's thinking about the staff that he wants to bring in too. And when you have the operations cap, it can tie your hands with respect to that. One thing people forget about too with a lot of these guys, I'm thinking of Kerry Joseph, Henry Burris, and Corey Mace. Unlike most high-level football coaches, these guys have all played, and not just played in the CFL, they've all played in the NFL too. So it makes you wonder what the possibilities are for all of them if they are able to have success as head coaches in the CFL, just like Corey Mace has. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you'd mentioned that they really prioritized their offense, and you and I had casually chatted late last season and speculated about what would happen with this great Canadian receiving corps that was here, and I wondered out loud, would they be able to keep both Emelis and Schaefer-Baker? I mean, I just thought one way or another, one of them would have to be gone. Are you as surprised as I am that they're both here, and locked in to stay, at least for now.
Oh, hugely. And look, that's not because Sam Emilus, Kian Schaefer-Baker didn't make it very clear they wanted to be back in Saskatchewan, right? Those guys have been very honest, very upfront about that. They said it repeatedly, I think, leading up to the Grey Cup and obviously at the Grey Cup. These are guys who they're not from Saskatchewan originally. Kian Schaefer-Baker is from Mississauga, played his university football at Guelph. Sam Emilus, originally from Montreal, and played exclusively in the NCAA. Started at Massachusetts and then went to Louisiana Tech to finish up. But they've fallen in love with Regina. Obviously, they're having a lot of success on the field. They have reached superstardom there, and they've just won a Grey Cup. But yeah, when you look at the money, right? Like, Tyson Philpott signs a $250,000 contract with the Montreal Alouettes, and you go, wow. Well, if Tyson Philpott, who's yet to have a 1,000-yard season in this league, obviously a tremendous player, but has not yet had that 1,000-yard season. What is Sam Emilus worth? Like, Sam Emilus has had that 1,000-yard season. He's won that Grey Cup. Tyson Philpott, granted, has won one too, but still, like, Emilus is so great. Well, he signs back, and then you go, okay. So the Riders have taken that money, they've given it to Samuel Emilus, and they've got all this depth behind him. The ever solid Mitch Picton. You've got a Joe, who's exciting and still on a rookie contract. Del Duncan Busby, who's exciting and still on a rookie contract. You've got Daniel Weeb coming in after a sensational season with the Saskatchewan Huskies. You've got, like Deshaun Mims, who's still there, former Regina Ram. Like, you've got all these Canadian receivers. You think surely, even if Tommy Neild goes, this team would be perfectly fine with if Kian Schaefer-Baker left. And that might mean that they can retain, whether it's AJ Allen, whether it's CJ Rivas, Habakkuk Baldonado, right? One of these defenders they let go. Well, lo and behold, they found the money. And so I was very surprised by that. But I also think it's smart, right? If you're the Riders, you've now got two very expensive, but also very talented receivers at your disposal, guys who both count towards that all-important Canadian ratio, who are local stars. And you've got an inexpensive but talented cast behind them, right? Lots of depth. Guys who might even end up starting alongside those two, right? The Riders started 4 Canadian receivers in the Grey Cup. They could do that again if they really wanted to for whatever reason. So I was surprised, especially with Keyshawn Johnson signing a big money deal to come back as well, Brendan. But by that same token, I think the Riders deserve credit for that. There's not many Canadian impact players in this league of that caliber, right? If you've got Kian Schaefer-Baker and Samuel Emilus, like how many offensive players in the CFL who are Canadian do you put up there with them? Nathan Rourke is the best of them all. But outside of those three, like Brady Oliveira obviously belongs in that conversation. Tyson Philpott, to me, belongs in that conversation. There's probably another couple guys, but it's a short, small group. So to have 2 of them is pretty sensational.
We're always up against the clock, but I don't want to let you go without very briefly touching on the Riders quarterback room. No more Jake Mayer. I don't think that was a big surprise to anybody. He's gone to Ottawa. Jack Cohn, we're going to see what he's made of, we think. I've heard that the Roughriders are very high on him, and I've heard them that they are saying things and thinking things about him that they have not thought about a lot of the other quarterbacks who have come through here. What are you hearing about Jack Cohn as a prospect?
I mean, I have never watched him in practice, so my exposure to him is very limited. I know he's a big-bodied, big-armed guy from Notre Dame, so obviously there's some collegiate accolades there. But, I mean, the proof will be in the pudding, right? Like, I think Jordan McLeod, who they just recently signed, he's a rookie who did some really sensational things in the NCAA, particularly at Texas State in 2024. Might have a very high ceiling. He's brothers with veteran NFL receiver Ray McLeod. So I'm interested to see that. But look, I think Jack Cohn needs a chance, right? Like he might go out and fall on his face, right? Like we don't know that. But whether it's Chase Bryce in BC, whether it's Harrison Frost in Hamilton, I find that there are just some quarterbacks in this league who have just not gotten that opportunity. And yeah, you can have guys be in the meeting room. You can have guys watching film. I mean, practice reps are always limited at the professional level, especially in the CFL with practice times being limited. But like at the end of the day, you do not know what a guy's going to do until they get pushed in the deep end. And there's lots of examples throughout the history of football of guys who struggle in practice and then light it up on game day, or the opposite. They look like $1 million in practice and they can't do it in a game, and they just can't piece it together for whatever reason. So I don't know if Jack Cohn is going to be a successful CFL quarterback, but the Riders have put years of development into him. I think it's time to figure out what he is.
Let's see what's in the box. This is great. John Hodge of 3 Down Nation. You can always read his stuff at 3downnation.com. Another Harvard Media sports star. Thanks for this, John. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks for having me, Brendan. Anytime.
Okay, very good. And John joining us on the Western Pizza guest hotline, the Greek-style pizza that has become famous around the world, plus all the Greek and Canadian food you can't get enough of. Western Pizza, the local legend. We'll be back with more coming up in Hour 1. We will check in with Scott McAulay from the Regina Thunder. You're listening to the Sportscage on Rider Radio, 620 CKRM.
Beat the winter blogs with hot deals from the Harvard Media Winter Auction. Auction is on now.
Hi, it's Cody.
And it's Gloria.
And here are some great Regina items to keep your eye on in the Harvard Media Winter Auction.
$1,000 gift cards for tree removal, gift cards for big steel box storage, a Can-Am quad, and a lot more.
The Harvard Media Winter Auction is on now. Visit harvardmediaauctions.com for all the details.
Sask Lotteries has over 50 years of winning behind us. And you know what that means? Lots of winning numbers. Numbers like over 1,200 organizations funded and 12,000 plus groups supported. $6 million given away annually in community grants. And the winningest number of all? $1.4 billion given back to the people of Saskatchewan through sport, culture, and recreation. And we're just getting started. Learn more at sasklotteries.ca.
Winter's not done yet, but your home projects can be. Finish the season strong with Freeze Tallman. From updating interior doors and trim to boosting attic insulation that helps keep heating costs down, Freeze Tallman has what you need. Thinking about a home office or finally setting up that home gym? Now's the time. And when it's cold outside, staying warm means staying in, so Freeze Tallman delivers right to your door. Visit freezetallman.com. Freeze Tallman. Locally owned, family grown. Rooted in our community for 70 years.
620 CKRM on location.
Get your lotto tickets here. Lotto tickets. We're going to get you back to the cage. And in a way, this is about sports because all the proceeds for the 29th annual Willow Bunch Golf Club Auto Lotto going back to the golf course. And it used to be a hidden gem, but it is well received these days. Book tee times plenty ahead of your holidays, and then get down to Willow Bunch to the John Louis Laguerriere Park and check out that rolling hill course. You got the grass greens, you got the paved cart paths. They've got a nice little get-together place and have a barbecue and just absorb the atmosphere. That's what it's all about with friends and family. And maybe win. $50,000 cash could be yours if you want a vehicle. Courtesy of Nelson GMs, will give you $60,000 in lotto cash towards the purchase of that new vehicle. We've got recreation vehicles up for grabs, subsidiary cash draws, a 50-50 that's looking pretty good right now. We are well ahead of the pace last year at this time. So grab your tickets, help out, and show your love, Saskatchewan. 1-866-PAY-DIRT. That's 1-866-729-3478.
SaskToday.ca is your local news source, proudly serving communities all across Saskatchewan. Sask Today's team of local journalists are on the ground focusing on local topics that matter to you. From agriculture, local community news, sports, and more. Find it all at SaskToday.ca. Sign up for our daily news digest at SaskToday.ca. From Harvard Media, everywhere.
This is Sportscage. Be part of the show. Call 936-6262 or toll free 1-866-767-0620. 620 CKRM.
Esquire and Colson Schultz with you on this Thursday edition of the Sportscage for Access Communications, trusted in rural Saskatchewan for internet, TV, and home security. Still lots of football talk ahead. Later in hour one, we'll check in with Scott McAulay, the head coach of the Regina Thunder, and press coverage with Glen Suitor coming up in hour number 3 as well. Before the show is done, we're going to have a deep dive into this Major League Baseball labor discussion that seems to be getting more traction all the time. I grew up in an era when the one season that we lost the Major League Baseball season, 1994, and growing up on a farm near Kipling, Saskatchewan, my dad wanted to try farming mustard, and he knew he would get a contract because the mustard crops, the price of mustard just totally plummeted after the 1994 baseball strike. I couldn't believe it, but just a month and a half of Major League Baseball not being played killed the mustard industry, but that's here nor there. There is concern that there will not be labor peace after the 2026 season because the LA Dodgers are wildly outspending everybody with a payroll projected to be north of $400 million going into the season. And some of the other teams can spend like right around 100, and you've got this multi-tiered system, which I think most of us would agree is not good for the sport. If you want the recipe for success, you need to look no further than the National Football League, which has had the ultimate parity because they have massive revenue sharing and they have the salary cap, and there's just unbelievable parity in the NFL, and that's long been believed to be one of the biggest components of their success, because so much of the revenue comes from the national TV contract. That's where the TV deals aren't broken out locally. So in baseball, you just have an awful mess where a team like the Dodgers receives over $300 million a year on a TV contract, and a lot of the other teams only have $50 or $60 million a season. So it creates this wide discrepancy where you have the haves and the have-nots. I think that a salary cap would be great for the sport. I think that a salary cap in any major professional sport is good for franchises in Canada and their ability to exist, because let's face it, there is an appetite in this country for something that's big league, and that's not hockey, and that's not Toronto. And I'm talking about, I like to fantasize about Major League Baseball returning to Montreal or even Vancouver. I think Montreal could be a possibility if you get a salary cap in baseball. However, it would not be good for the Toronto Blue Jays. And I'll cite that example a little bit later when we check in with Arash Madani in hour 3. Did you want to do Sprinkle of the Day, or we push that to later?
We should push that to later, but I will say, of the things that I would have thought of from a baseball lockout, I would not have thought of the mustard industry's impact in that. I would not have put that together.
I never thought of that either, but he told me that's what gave him the idea to go get a mustard contract.
Absolutely. It makes sense. Like, I totally get it. It's just one of those things you're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of mustard consumed in baseball.
In baseball, lots of hot dogs being eaten at all these different ballparks. It totally
makes sense. It's just something you don't think about until after it's been said, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess so.
Well, and I should clarify, the industry collapsed, and so a lot of people just didn't want to farm mustard anymore, and so he knew, because there wouldn't be many people farming it, he could step up, and he did. So luck smiled his way, and not for anybody who was actually a fan of baseball or the Montreal Expos, who lost that 94 season from that disastrous strike. Still ahead, we'll check in with Scott McAulay from the Regina Thunder. You are watching and listening to the Sports Cage on the Rough Rider Broadcast Network.
To celebrate CKRM's 100th anniversary, we're honoring the icons who helped shape this station into what it is today. Our very first 620 CKRM icon inductee, Willie Cole. Here's a behind the mic moment with Willie Cole.
The Riders are the ultimate sports holding in this province. I had the good fortune of starting out with the CFL in Calgary as a sideline voice, along with Avonlee's Flash, Ken Ewans, and Henry Viney. That's where I got started, covering the Bombers for 2 years in Winnipeg. But coming here, when I had this opportunity, I got to be not only the sideline voice, but in-stadium field voice for almost 30 years. That really was something for us. But then you could see, as the Riders starting a win mentality, I mean, we came through the era of Riders where we were selling piles of grain to save their bacon, doing radiothons. But as soon as they started to win, pardon pardon me, and then pick off that, the Grey Cups and being there for them, being part of the national audience was huge for this company. Yes, and the Rams, they're a huge junior holding for football. Their record's incredible. The Regina Pats, over 100-year history. To be part of that over the many years, that kind of tied it all up and gave us an identity over and above country music. It was a combination, and you're right, it got into every household.
To hear the full extended interview, visit our 100th year page at 620ckrm.com or sastoday.ca. 620 CKRM on location.
Afternoon and welcome to the 29th. 29 years. 620 CKRM has been there for each and every one. The Willow Bunch Golf Club Auto Lotto. This is one of those great small town lotteries with big city atmosphere. We're going to give away cash. We're going to give away prizes. It's all got to go on Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock at the Jolly Giant Pub in Willow Bunch. You can take the car, grab the cash. $50,000 could be yours. $60,000 towards a brand new vehicle. Then we're going to make the draw for that recreation unit, or both of those units. If you don't want that, we'll give you cash instead. That's courtesy of Ebrass and Sons. We got subsidiary draws for cash. We got a beautiful 50-50 that's jumped leaps and bounds here in the last few hours. Those tickets are 1 for 10, 5 for 25, 15 for 50. Pick up your tickets. Maybe you want to go to the website, check it all out, willowbunch.ca. You can go to e-commerce with Willow Bunch Golf Club at sastel.net. Or the best bet, talk to one of our great volunteers, 1-866-PAY-DIRT, 1-866-729-3478.
Access is connected where it counts, in your community and in your home. And right now, we're making it more affordable for you to stay connected at the acreage, the cabin, or the farm. With Access Rural Internet for as low as $69.95 for 24 months. Plus, you can add Access Next TV Stream. And keep an eye on things with Access Rural Security. Stay connected, stay local. With fast, reliable, homegrown solutions from Access Communications. Visit myaccess.ca to sign up.
Did you know over 1.3 million homeowners call on Reliance for their water heater needs? With over 150,000 five-star online reviews and over 60 years experience, you could say Reliance Heath are water heater experts. Switch to Reliance Heath today. They'll give you $200 for all your hot water needs.
Call on Reliance.
Visit waterheaterrentals.com for details. Terms and conditions apply.
Text CKRM 306-936-6262 for Prairie Land Rentals. Renting heaters, skid steers, and most power tools for all those winter jobs. And your official Husqvarna snow thrower dealer. Prairie Land Rentals, 600 Albert Street, where you deal with the owner. Welcome back to Sportscage. Connect with the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262.
Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz on this Thursday edition of the Sportscage for Access Communications, trusted in rural Saskatchewan for internet, TV, and home security. Still ahead, we'll check in with Glen Suitor and also Arash Madani and talk a little bit about the Olympics and some more CFL football as well, because we can never get enough of that. Hashtag is it May yet. But right now, we head out onto the Western Pizza guest line. Very pleased to be joined by the head coach of the Regina Thunder, enjoying his winter vacation from the annual grind, Scott McAulay. Scott, thanks for coming on the program. I was going to ask you, are you a big NFL fan? Do you watch a lot of NFL after your season's done, or do you get footballed out by that point?
So I do watch a lot of NFL, but it's more like in and out from naps after the season's ended. So, I like to think I know what's going on, but if we start talking NFL, you probably would lose me pretty quick. But if we talk to X's and O's, I'd be with you.
Well, you'd lose me on either count because I don't know a damn thing about X's and O's. And with all the CFL stuff and traveling around with the Rams and following you guys, I get footballed out too. I was just going to say I don't feel like I even recognize the NFL anymore, and maybe that's a good thing. Probably had too much of it earlier. Wanted to talk to you about off-season update. We don't usually check in a whole bunch this time of year, and I know it's a little more quiet. But just before Christmas, I talked to Mark McConkey with the Rams, who's a pretty busy guy running around. I suspect you are too. What are your off-season recruiting efforts like for you? How much time are you having to put into it?
I mean, it's the recruiting game has really changed, to be honest. Like, I remember back in the day when I worked for the guy that's on your T-shirt there. A lot of times with the Rams back in the day, you didn't really go recruiting until you went to Senior Bowl, which was like in May. And then, as things kind of progressed, guys were kind of recruiting maybe more in the new year in January, February. I remember then the University of Alberta Golden Bears came out also, and they were committing to guys like in August, and I caught everybody off guard. And then now the things changed where you almost got to be like a year ahead. And that's what we're kind of preparing for right now, as much as we're already closing down the recruiting class for this year. We're already starting to focus on the 2027s and get to know who they are. Times have changed. I believe strongly in the whole, the process of going to camps and trying out, and, us getting to see if guys are, full of grit and able to push themselves and good teammates and all that kind of stuff. But things have changed now where, you got to go watch them out at all the different camps, say SAS Selects or, the different Team Saskatchewan trials, or have your own camps. And then you got to rely on, their high school coaches or, friends kind of calling on them to see a little bit more about their character and see if they're the right fit or not. So times have changed, and we've had to adapt as well. And it's been super busy. The season ended. Just want to take some time off, get caught up with work. All the coaches on my staff are volunteers. Nobody gets paid, not even our team president or equipment manager or myself. We're all volunteers. And you got to hit the road and get caught up with work, but at the same time, you still have to get out there and keep on recruiting. And I'm extremely happy with the recruiting class that we have right now.
Is there a deadline by which players have to commit to a certain program if they're going to play in 2026?
No. Like, I think that's like one of the things, like with a lot of the U Sport teams having guys commit so early. Like, I know like a lot of the junior programs are trying to get guys commit early too. But at the end of the day, you can't really sign officially with anybody in our league until I think you're allowed to sign 10 guys or whatever after January 15th, and then you can sign everybody else up to June 1st. So technically, guys don't need to verbally commit to anybody until like down the road. But again, times have changed, and guys, start to get a little excited and they want to commit right away. And I've always enjoyed our indoor camps, getting guys out there, seeing them ball, see who's who in the zoo, see them compete. And again, those days are kind of done now. You got to get ahead of the game and commit to them early. And I mean, at the end of the day, you want to get that verbal commitment. And if you can't shake a person's hand and look them in the eye and then commit to you and you commit back, then we don't want them anyways.
I understand that there's some players who you will not have in the fall who are moving to BC. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's more than guys just moving to BC. I mean, every year, we're trying to graduate 12 to 15 guys a year, and we've been successful at that. And, I think that's been one of the keys that why we've been successful in the PC championship game, the last 5 years, is because we have graduated 12 to 15 guys. And then every year, some guys are graduating from university and they want to move on with their careers. Some guys maybe want to move on to U Sports, and that's kind of like part of the norm. But, like one of the things that's happened to us is our roster's gotten fairly big, really big, to be honest. And COVID was actually good for us. We, you get all the stuff to help clean the clubhouse up and stuff. Now you can keep a few more bodies in there. But, there's some guys that, weren't as happy with maybe their playing time. And they wanted to have the opportunity to play for a different team and see if they're able to play there. And then also, like one of our coaches, Chris Ashman, who's also moved on out to BC to VI. He moved there, and because of that, then also his sons are going to want to move there, and some of their friends as well. So we have lost, I think, 2 or 3 guys so far to VI with guys who are currently like on our team. But at the end of the day, next guy's up, and we do have a big roster, and we have a bunch of guys that we do believe in as well.
When you say VI, you're referring to Vancouver Island Raiders, I think?
Yeah. So okay. Andrew Harris, the running back coach for the Riders. I think he's the general manager for the VI Raiders. And so the team where he came from and started his CFL career is the team that some of these players are going out to, and that's the team that Chris Ashman. So I've known Chris since elementary school. We were friends way back in the day, and we went to high school together and played high school football together and got into a lot of trouble together. And then we also went to university and both played on the Rams together and went to university together. And we both ended up having twins. around the same time back in 2006, and so I've seen him through all the minor football and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a great 3 years having the opportunity to coach with that guy on the Regina Thunder, but I know that he's always wanted to be an offense coordinator, and he never had that opportunity with the Miller Marauders or Team Saskatchewan, and unfortunately not with us either. So VI proposed that opportunity for him, and he took it, and so we're wishing him nothing but the best. And also he's got a son, Jackson Ashman, that we wish would have stayed. He's a hell of a football player, but at the end of the day, he told me that he plans to go use sports next year, and this is probably one of the only times in his life that he's going to be able to move away from home and experience other parts of the country.
It sounds to me like this is really just kind of an isolated one-off, and it's not, before we had this conversation, I was kind of wondering if this was going in a direction of, I used to cover a lot of junior hockey, like a million years ago, and I remember the SJHL was looking for a commissioner when Wayne Cartouche retired, and the commissioner of the BCHL applied. He wanted to come to Saskatchewan, and people were like, why would you want to come here? Wouldn't that just be a lateral move? And he said, you don't understand. BC's a different world. It's like the wild, wild west out there. And, in the BCHL, you have like these community-owned teams, and you have these other teams that have owners who have gobs of cash, and this is their toy, and they often would raid the Saskatchewan teams to pull players. I just felt like BC was, sports-wise, just a different kind of place, kind of like they say Florida's a different kind of place down in the States for bigger reasons than that. But it sounds from what you're telling me, that's not what's happening here. This is more just an isolated one-off, really.
Yeah, I hope so. But I mean, at the end of the day, when you have bigger rosters and guys want to play, they might be looking for other opportunities. We're hoping that we do a good enough job as coaches and as an organization in treating our players that they're going to want to stay, and hopefully this is kind of like a one-off. But I mean, we've had guys as well that have played for us in the past and moved on to other junior teams. It's just never really been that big of a deal. And this year also with some of the guys getting a little bit more hype, being interviewed and stuff in different channels that it's a little bit more known or whatever. But again, it's no different. But for myself, I'm passionate about the Regina Thunder, and that's what I care about the most. And I want to make sure that we do our best to continue to support our athletes and try to keep them around as much as we possibly can. And hopefully we create that culture, which I think we have, and continue to do to ensure that guys want to stick around. And I mean, at the end of the day, we do have a certain way that we do things, and some guys fit that mold and some guys don't, and it's their decisions if they want to stay or not. And like you just said, I feel strongly that it's going to be kind of like a one-off, but you never know. Maybe the times are changing. I know there's a lot of players in Regina that we didn't really have the opportunity to talk to during our playoff run there because we were winning games that committed to some of the junior teams out west pretty early, right? Which is good for them, fantastic. We have the guys that we already kind of really wanted, and even looking at our roster, right now, we're already at, 87 guys, so I maybe have 5 spots left. So, the guys that we got on our team, we're really happy with the recruits that we got, great athletes, and they're going to fit the mold. There's a book called Grit that was written by Angela Duckworth that we're reading right now, and it's funny, the first chapter really painted a huge picture of what we're all about and what we're trying to accomplish, and really who sticks around. And I thought it was kind of it was a little bit of a blessing to start reading that book with our team here last week, and it really resonated with myself.
This is a time of year where you actually have time to do that, so that's great. Is there an area on your squad on paper that you would say, wow, we're really loaded here, we're really rock solid, and is there another area that you think you still need to shore up a little bit before you break for training camp in August?
Yeah, so I'd say strength-wise, I automatically look at our defensive line. Like last year, we had a lot of injuries, and we had a lot of guys that are in their third or fourth year that unfortunately were injured, and that group was still very solid throughout the season. Well, now those guys have had a chance to bounce back from their surgeries and do their rehab and get into the weight room, and they're all coming back. So I feel strongly that our defensive line is going to be a real area of strength for the team. Also, even at quarterback, last year we had Mosher, who was in year 4, now going to year 5, and then we had James Zelonka, who is a rookie out of high school that's now going to be going to his second year of junior football. Both those guys are back at the quarterback spot, and just from having another year of football being underneath kind of Gus way, I think they're going to do a great job. And even our receivers, like I look at them this year as being a big time strength for us, and hopefully we're going to throw the rock a little bit more. Some areas that we need to shore up, like, I automatically think about our offensive line. I mean, we lost 4 out of 5 starters, but at the same time, it was somewhat part of like the plan of action here. We're still looking to bring in maybe 1, maybe 2 veteran sort of type of guys that had playing experience, but we really wanted to make sure that our young guys, such as like Parker Robertson, Ben Rotherdale, and even like first year guys like last year, like Logan Leeson and Zdunich out of Canaston via Davidson, their football program, like those guys are going to be able to step and play right away. So, I think that's going to be an area of growth that they're going to need to grow right away, but we bought them another year of lifting weights. And so like hopefully Dan Farthing and Dan Yaskiewicz at level 10, and they're doing their job of getting them a little bit stronger and faster and bigger and meaner. And I think they're going to do a hell of a job. And I think guys, they're going to step up and do a great job. And they're going to work with Tristan Rapchuk, who's also returning for his 3rd season. And he was a PFC All-Star last year.
Well, I mean, I'm excited already about the squad you have coming back in the fall. And I know that the last 2 falls, like October, November, have felt like 2 of the best football falls in Saskatchewan, just with the Roughriders doing so well, the Rams, and I know your Thunder are a huge part of that. So we're excited for that. Thanks for giving some time to us here today, and I know we'll talk again before the season gets going in the late summer.
Well, we look forward to it, and thanks for supporting amateur football in Saskatchewan, and especially the junior guys. We appreciate it.
Right on. We love watching junior football. That's Scott McAulay from the Regina Thunder joining us on the Western Pizza guest line. And all guests appearing on the guest line for Western Pizza, the Greek-style pizza that has become famous around the world, plus all the Greek and Canadian food. You can't get enough of Western Pizza, the local legend. And I do a lot of work with, I've done a lot of work over the years with the Thunder and also with the Regina Rams. And some say that the Rams have the challenge of not having such a big talent pool to draw from because we're a smaller province. But then you talk to people in Calgary and Edmonton, they say one of the reasons that those teams in Saskatchewan can do well is you have 2 powerhouse junior programs like the Hilltops and the Thunder. So it could be argued the Thunder play a really big role in even the success of the Rams around here. I've got to take a break, and still ahead on this edition of the program, Sharky will be in with the NASCAR Report and Benny Walchuk with the SJHL Report as well. You are listening to and watching the Sportscage on the Rough Rider Broadcast Network, 620 CKRM.
Hi, it's Perry Nias. 620 CKRM is turning 100 this year. We've been loving all the messages coming in, and now it's your turn. Got a funny story? A favorite memory? Or just want to say congrats, CKRM? We'd love to hear it. Leave a voicemail at 306-546-6230. 306-546-6230. 620 CKRM. 100 years young and still having fun.
You know, when you talk to folks who own a tri-haul self-unloading bale mover, you hear the same thing again and again.
Once you have one, you never want to be without one.
And this one made us all smile.
In the fall, it felt like all I did was haul bales. Now I go fishing.
That's the tri-haul difference. Order now and get free delivery up to 500 kilometers. Visit trihaulbalemovers.com or call 1-800-505-9208.
Manage your cash flow and ensure you have Co-op diesel when you need it most. Seeding is a busy time of year. You need to get the crops in the ground without delay. This spring, take advantage of Co-op's early delivery program to fill your tanks and keep your cash flowing. Purchase your Co-op diesel by April 30th. Don't pay until May 31st. With Co-op, you can get fuel now and pay later. Contact your local Co-op fuel team to book your delivery.
Debt can take over your life. The stress, the constant worry, it can feel like you're drowning. When people come to see me, they're often anxious and feeling hopeless. But when I explain how I can help them get out of debt, those feelings melt away. I'm Jasmine Brown, a licensed insolvency trustee at BDO here in Regina. I will create a personalized debt relief plan so you can move forward with confidence. Call 1-833-BDO-TALK or visit bdodebt.ca to discover your debt-free future.
Access is connected where it counts, in your community and in your home. And right now, we're making it more affordable for you to stay connected at the acreage, the cabin, or the farm. With Access Rural Internet for as low as $69.95 for 24 months. Plus, you can add Access Next TV Stream and keep an eye on things with Access Rural Security. Stay connected, stay local. With fast, reliable, homegrown solutions from Access Communications. Visit myaccess.ca to sign up.
It's time for the Sports Ticker, brought to you by Reliance Heath Water Heater Rentals. Switch to Reliance today and get $200 cash back with your new water heater. Some conditions apply. Call on Reliance.
Well, Team Canada comes up short in women's hockey, losing in the gold medal game 2-1 in overtime to Team USA. Megan Keller was the hero with the overtime goal. Canada led for the majority of the game after Kristen O'Neill scored early in the second period, but Team USA fought back and got the tying goal with 2:04 left to go in the third period before the U.S. won in overtime. Kind of similar to Team Canada and their scare against Czechia on the men's side in the quarterfinal game, where Canada got the tying goal late and then ended up eventually winning. So Canada ends up with silver in women's hockey. It remains to be seen if the men can make it up on that side. Of course, the semifinal game coming up tomorrow morning versus Finland. In curling, Canada's Rachel Homan clinches a semifinal berth with a victory over South Korea. I watched a good part of that game. 6-3 victory. They ended up winning 5 straight to get into the playoffs. A lot of people were writing them off once they had 3 losses. And Team Canada lost to Norway on the men's side. Brad Jacobs losing 8-6 to Magnus Rumsfjell. But it didn't really matter because Canada finishes second in the round robin, and they will play against Norway in a rematch in the semifinals. So all over in hockey, women's hockey, we do get a medal, but still lots to happen in curling and over on the men's side as well. Sports Ticker for Reliance Heath Water Heater Rentals, keeping you in hot and soft water. Call Reliance. Okay, and so that takes care of that. And also, do we want to do Sprinkle of the Day? Do we have time?
Oh, yeah, we got time to do that now.
All right.
Sprinkle. Give me a second to...
Sprinkles of Jesus. That's the first thing I think of whenever we talk about that. When Cody Fajardo was here, whenever they'd have a big play. We didn't have enough Sprinkles of Jesus when he was here. That's why he's not here anymore.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but yeah. So, here, I'm just... scrambling to get all of my stuff together now.
I was just gonna say the curling is a really big deal, and when the women were at 3 losses, they were going into that game against Sweden yesterday, and this was, I think, the commentator said the 36th time that Rachel Homan has gone against that Sweden rink, and something like that. Like, not just in Olympic play, but in other international competitions, cash tournaments, whatever. And their record, Canada had the better of them, but they played a lot of competitive games, and if they lost that game, it was over. Like of those 36 matches, that game probably had higher stakes than any other head-to-head between those 2 rinks. And Canada came out. So I feel like it's a feel-good story, the fact that they had to win all those games just to get into the playoffs. And who knows, maybe they could pull it off. Another reminder that fighting through adversity early isn't such a bad thing, even in the Olympics in such a short tournament.
Yeah. Well, looking at Sports Select here, you can't bet on curling futures anymore. It looks like it's gotten too close now. So I'm just going to try and reset my...
with Sports Select.
With Sprinkle of the Day, because I'm like, let's look at curling then, but we can't right now.
And then try to look for NHL, and that's not on either.
Yeah, exactly. But they do have, as the featured game, Finland at Canada for the men's, so we could sprinkle on that maybe. Yeah, no, I'm good with that. And looks like the point spread is Canada 1.3? 1.5.
Oh, 1.5. I'm totally reading that wrong. I'm such a terrible gambler. Oh, there it is. I used to gamble on absolutely everything with mostly football. I never got into it so much with the other sports, but a bit of hockey. Canada, the point spread is, so basically they have to win by 2 to cover.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that they should be able to cover. The Finns are really, really good, and we respect the Finns a great deal. But come on. I think that Canada should be able to cover a spread like that against pretty well anybody but maybe the United States. We're kind of in this era where the States are who the Russians used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no Russia, which doesn't break my heart at all. I know some people feel like it's not a real tournament without the Russians. I'm fine with it. And if it has to be that way, it has to be that way. I really, really want Canada to win the gold here. But more than that, I just don't want to lose to the Americans. I feel like I could live with Canada losing in the gold medal game if we lost to Slovakia or somebody like that. Just don't lose to the Americans. But above all else, it would be nice to see the men win the gold, especially after we missed out over on the women's side.
Yep. So that is your sprinkle of the day. Getting in on more of the sports action you want is as easy as playing at sportselect.com. Simply make your picks online, generate your QR code, and lock in your bet at your local lotto spot retailer.
Wow, you just totally nailed that. I don't know why I read all these taglines. We have you. You know, I just show up. I do almost nothing. Colson does all the work to put this together. I think every office needs a Colson. And
also have to add, every bet is 100% legal with the chance of winning cash in hand. Sports Select, when you're ready to play, bet on the original. Must be 18 plus to play. Play responsibly.
And the money stays here. It doesn't go to some offshore site. Just thought I'd throw that in too.
Exactly.
Okay, still ahead, press coverage with Glen Suitor and also the NASCAR Report with Sharky. You are watching and listening to the Sportscage on the Rough Rider Broadcast Network, 620 CKRM.
This is 620 CKRM, a Harvard media station. Available everywhere in high-res audio with the CKRM app.
It's 4 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Tanner Walvis-Scribner from the SaskToday.ca newsroom with 620 CKRM News for Bronco Plumbing and Heating, where professional service is guaranteed. They'll treat you right. 781-2090. The blizzard-like conditions are over, and now the cold is set to begin. Environment Canada has issued a yellow advisory for extreme cold areas of southern Saskatchewan as a period of very cold wind chills near or below -40 is expected across the region. Conditions may improve during the day, but the extreme cold will return overnight through the week. Officials warn that this type of cold puts everyone at risk. And while the snow is done for now, how much snow did we end up getting? It'll be difficult to get total accumulation from the snow right away, according to Environment Canada meteorologist Danielle Desjardins.
Because the winds were gusty, especially in the onset of the event, we could see some, it could be pretty difficult to measure the snowfall.
People are encouraged to check on older family members and neighbors and keep emergency supplies in their vehicles, including blankets and jumper cables. The Seven Fires Warming Shelter was busy keeping people safe the past 2 nights during the freezing blizzard in Regina. Morgan Showcare is their housing programs manager.
Overnight, we were quite full, hovering at capacity pretty well all night, and there were some times we had to turn folks away because we were at capacity with an unusual influx of folks.
Regina has 3 warming centers that operate during extreme cold. With heavy snowfall in Regina, community associations are mobilizing volunteers through the Snow Angels program. The initiative helps seniors, residents with disabilities, and those on fixed incomes clear driveways and sidewalks. Joshua Springer with the Al Ritchie Community Association says volunteers are ready to respond after each storm. He says between 22 and 26 homes are supported in that neighborhood alone. Organizers say the program helps prevent injuries and ensure vulnerable residents can safely access their homes. Saskatchewan NDP Deputy Leader Vicky Mowat is calling for tougher penalties for repeat sex offenders after the brief release and rearrest of serial voyeur Kyle Haimluck. Haimluck was sentenced in October of 2025 to less than 3 years in prison with credit for time served and was released after 7 months. Police warned at the time that he would likely reoffend. He pleaded guilty to 38 counts of voyeurism in 2020 and was previously convicted of indecent assault in 2017. Mowat said Saskatchewan residents no longer feel safe in their homes and called for reforms at both the federal and provincial levels. She said Ottawa should strengthen the criminal code and introduce harsher mandatory minimum sentences for serial voyeurism. She also urged the provincial government to increase funding for police and victim supports in the upcoming budget. That's 620 CKRM News. Read more stories from around your community and around the province at sastoday.ca and 620ckrm.com.
620 CKRM on location.
Good afternoon. We're going to get you back to the cage real quick, and lots to get to and talk about. Want to share with you the 29th annual Willow Bunch Golf Club Auto Lotto information. Now, this has started. It started today. This is the start of our 3-day blitz. I'm in studios today, but after we're done here, we're heading out on the road down Highway 6 to beautiful Willow Bunch, hanging out with our friends and my home away from home. And they've got a beautiful golf course. That's where all the proceeds are going to keep the lights on, do some renovations, and a whole lot more. And it is a must golf course to get to sometime this summer when you get a chance. And we'd love to set you up with some cash in the process. How about $50,000? That's a nice investment, or a reward for a $50 investment. And $50, not a lot of money, but when it adds up at the end, it's going to make a world of a difference and give you a chance at $50,000. Plus so much more. You got to check out the website, willowbunch.ca. You call 1-866-PAY-DIRT, 1-866-729-3478.
And your Precision Weather Forecast is brought to you by Line-X Regina, Serious Protection, Killer Looks, 1865 McCarra Street. For this afternoon, mix of sun and cloud with areas of blowing and drifting snow, a high of minus 18. Wind supposed to pick up to about 40 clicks by early evening. Tonight, partly cloudy, down to minus 23 overnight. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, light winds and a high of minus 18. For Friday night, we're looking at mainly clear. Going to be really, really chilly, down to a low of minus 27. Saturday, sunny all day with a high of minus 18. And for Sunday, partly sunny, a high of minus 17. Followed by Monday, it's supposed to warm up, partly sunny at times with a high of minus 7.
For 40 years, the team from Line-X Regina has been protecting vehicles across Saskatchewan, and we're changing with the times. 3 generations of our family have protected your vehicles. Our business has evolved, and we're not stopping now. The next generation is here. Same family, same commitment, ready for the next generation of truck beds, rocker panels, trailers, bumpers, and running boards in all kinds of colors. Line-X Regina, 1865 McCarra Street, the next generation of protective coatings.
Broadcasting from Century Studios in downtown Regina, Harvard Media presents The Sports Cage, where Saskatchewan comes to talk local sports. Brought to you by Access Communications, trusted in rural Saskatchewan for internet, TV, and home security. Be part of the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262. The Sports Cage. Streaming at sportscage.com, our YouTube channel, and on the radio at 620 CKRM.
Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz taking you through this Thursday Sports Cage Hour 2. Still ahead on this edition of the program, we'll check in with Arash Madani and we have Coast to Coast and press coverage with Arash and Glen Suitor coming up in Hour 3. Suits, we usually get into CFL talk, and we might do some of that today, but it'll probably be a little more heavy on the Olympic side. A lot of people forget. I'm old enough to remember when they used to send Suits out to cover stuff other than just football before he became confined to his football silo. So I know he's excited to talk about the Olympics, and maybe we'll talk about the flag football coming to the Olympics in 2028. A lot more people are talking about that a little more regularly as well. Also still ahead, the Calne Solar Clutch Performer of the Day. But right now, let's get to Benny.
Time now for the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League Report with Benny Walchuk on the Sports Cage. The SJHL Report is brought to you by Chad Reach, Senior Wealth Advisor, GP Financial Services, and Aviso Wealth. If you need a second opinion on your retirement plan, Chad and his local team are available for a no-obligation meeting.
Very pleased to be joined on the Western Pizza guest line by our very own Benny Walchuk from CJGX 940 fame in Yorkton. And Benny, before we get started, I wanted to ask you, what about my Estevan Bruins? What are they looking like this year?
Doing all right. Very good start to their season. Had a little bit of lag when they lost their leading scorer, Ewan Rennie, but they have two of the most exciting players in the SJHL in Ryland Williams and Ewan Rennie, and they're in a battle right now for that final playoff spots in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League standings. So it's a work in progress right now, and Estevan's going to be on the road here for the last stretch here of the regular season. So it's going to be a little bit of a hill to climb for them, but they're right in position to try to claim one of those final spots.
Well, my good buddy Drew Koser's the head coach down there now, so I'm cheering. Well, I've always been cheering for the Bruins, but I'm really excited for him and for them and what they're doing right now. Hey, before we get to your power rankings, one other thing I wanted to ask you about is there was a lot of worry when the NCAA rules changed that, you know, players could go through the Western Hockey League and then still play in the NCAA, and a lot of people debating whether that's good, bad, or otherwise for the WHL. I think it's a good thing for the Western League. And one thing was pointed out to me was that it might actually be good for the SJHL because it might give them access to more WHL players who maybe just need a little more seasoning. I don't want to say act as a farm club, but maybe in the grand scheme of it all, it could be better for the SJ2. What are you hearing and what have you been seeing on that front since the change?
Yeah, it's been a little bit like that for sure. Of course, with Warman, the new franchise in the Saskatoon area, they've kind of used the Blades have used them as a little bit of a farm team. Of course, Tate Timmerman, their 2007-born netminder, he's been the starting netminder for Warman. They had their U.S.-born draft pick, Mason Moreland. He's only 2009-born. He's playing with Warman to get some seasoning. So it's good for Saskatoon. They can come and practice whenever they want. If they need to call up, they're just down the road. And it's given a lot of times. I think it allows WHL teams to be a little bit more patient with their players. Hey, let's go play a couple of years in the Junior A, get some experience in Junior A, and we'll bring you maybe a little bit older, maybe as an 18 or 19 or even a 20-year-old. So I think it's been working both ways. We talked about it's not a lot of Junior A kids are maybe getting those NCAA scholarships. Division I at least is than they did in the past years, just because the WHL players and some of those guys are taking those spots right now. But it's allowing the youth sports to maybe stack up on the Junior A players. Division III hockey south of the border is taking more of the SJHL players, and those are great programs still to boot. So I think it's working right now. I think it's keeping people in Saskatchewan more often, because if I'm a draft pick, maybe of the Swift Current Broncos or Moose Jaw Warriors, instead of playing maybe prep school or somewhere else across the Western Canada, maybe I'll go play Junior A with the team that drafted me in the SJHL. So I think it's been working both ways, but I think it's still pretty young and infant to kind of focus on the overwhelm and the big picture. So we'll see in the next couple of years how it will kind of unfold.
Good stuff. Let's get to your power rankings. What have you got?
Well, Flin Flon Bombers still leading the way right now. Of course, they've had a little stumble. They lost in Kindersley last week, so that was their first blemish in a while, but they are still 20-0 at home, so 20-0 at home. They'll play Melville a couple of times this weekend, and it's just been a great stretch for Flin Flon. Mike Reagan, of course, he was with Dave earlier in this week. He's going to be honored for coaching in his 1,000th game on the weekend, or over last month, I guess it was in December, but he'll be honored on the weekend. So he's been a pretty good franchise. Like Mike said, maybe didn't expect to have as much success here this year, but the young team is playing pretty well. Right now, Battlefords and Weyburn kind of way on their way up. Battlefords has outscored their opponents 15-4 the last 3 games in big wins to kind of try to solidify home ice in round 1 of the playoffs. Weyburn's kind of took a step back after a little bit of a stumble, and you have a team, the number 7 team right now is the Melfort Mustangs. And of course, Melfort, the 2-time defending champions. A lot of people at the deadline says, why aren't you trading Zayden Saddlemeyer? Why aren't you trading Bo Eisner? Why aren't you trading Austin Shepard and some of their 20-year guys of 1-2 championships there in Melfort? And they said, hey, we like our squad. We added Noel Inglot from Verdun, a 20-year-old product from Candiac, Saskatchewan. So he's added in, and their goaltending is getting much better. So that's a team, maybe if they do sneak into the playoffs, it's still a dogfight right now. But if Melfort sneaks in with all that playoff experience, that's a team I probably don't want to play in round number 1.
There you go. Scary team if you go against them. And sorry, it's the top 10 that get in or the top 8 that get in?
Top 8, yeah. Doesn't matter where you are in the standings, top 8, and then goes 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, so on and so forth. So you just got to get into the big dance, and anything can happen.
I love it when it's that way. See, when I was covering the league, I remember it was 8 out of 12 that would get in, and sometimes you'd have teams with a winning record. And this is back in the day when you didn't get a loser point. Back when the world was right and we had ties, Benny Walchuk. I miss the ties because it would get you excited about when you had to play each other again later. But there would be teams that had like good records in both Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and they'd miss the playoffs. And I kind of like that because it meant that a game in October or November really meant something. And hockey from time to time has had a problem where people don't get interested until after Christmas. But I think that makes the regular season really mean something. Now, I know you've been around a long time. I suspect you were covering the league back when 10 out of 12 teams got in. Have you noticed a big difference from that standpoint as far as the level of competition early in the season? Because you have to be so good just to get in.
Yeah, exactly. Especially divisional points. Like you play your division. I know they're still separated in 3 divisions, but you played a division 8 times. So you drop a game maybe in October when you're still trying to figure things out. You look down maybe in end or beginning of March here when you get down to playoff pitch. Oh crap! We lost that game, or so on and so forth. And even for the trades wise, like trade deadline it was busy enough, but it's not like Melville or these guys are Laurent just selling. They're going to trade all their 20-year-olds away or something like that, or like we said with Melfort, or even like a team bridging maybe like a Humboldt. Who did deal some players away, but they still have a few veterans left in the roster. But teams don't want to give away because, like you said, you go on a hot stretch, you win maybe 7 or 8 in a row, and you're right back in the playoff picture in a success. And it just shows what the competition the SJHL is like. And that's what makes it so great is a game in September, at the end of September, maybe your home opener or a stretch there when you're up north in Flin Flon for a weekend. Those games mean as much as they do in March, which is great.
You do the Terrier games. Do you do Melville games too? And do you do one of the Manitoba teams too?
I do, yeah. I do Millionaires and I do the Swan Valley Stampeders and the MJHL as well. So keeping busy as much as I can.
Good stuff. What's the Yorkton Melville rivalry like these days?
It's been good. Yeah, they've had its first 4 games were their typical home and home, and then of course in Melville hosting the curling in January, early January. They had to kind of split it up, so they hosted one on January 2nd, and then beginning of February was the latest one, and it was an epic battle. Millionaires probably deserved a better fate, but the Terriers got a couple late goals, and then a overtime win for the Terriers in the latest one in Melville. So they've been tight battles like they are each and every time for the Parks Cup, and it's who knows. Like I said, there was first round matchup right now, and I think if the playoffs might end today, it could be a Melville-Yorkton matchup as well again, too. So it's been pretty good.
That'd be good stuff. I remember going out there when the Terriers and the Millionaires met in the finals for the first time ever, and you could tell the joint was jumping. And I have memories of after the Mills lost to the Terriers, I remember Jamie Fiesel was the coach, and he would make the players get on the bus and go home and skate in their full gear after. Probably not a good look on the league looking back on it, but still a pretty epic story and just another chapter in that epic rivalry. Benny Walchuk, you can listen to him broadcasting sports and SJHL games galore on GX94. Hey, at least there's games happening this weekend in that league. A lot of the other leagues are shut down because of the Olympics and whatnot. So if you want to get your hockey fix, head that way. Thanks for doing this, Benny. We'll talk again next week.
Thanks, Brendan. Appreciate it. Just a couple things before we go. Olympics, we talked about Olympics, and the SJHL had 4 officials that officiate in the SJHL. Terrington Wyanzik, Sienna Murray, Michelle McKenna, and Alex Clark, who are doing a great job overseas. Of course, Sienna just was referee of the gold medal game. So I just want to give them shots and then give them their shout-outs here on the air, and just a great feat for them coming all the way from the SJHL, small town Saskatchewan, to the big stage at the Olympics. So congratulations to the 4 of them.
Dave and Colson let me know about Sienna, and you just totally stole my thunder for the clutch performer, but I'm glad you brought those up because we don't talk about those stories nearly enough, and it shows a level of officiating the level of officials that they are, because the IOC does not like having people from a country of a participant. So you better be a really good ref if you're going to get to do a big game like that. So it's a tribute to them. Thanks again, Benny.
Thanks, Brendan. Appreciate it. Thanks, Colson. That
is Benny Walchuk from GX94 with this week's SJHL report. Wow, he just knows the league inside and out, and it's easier for him to do it when you broadcast for not one but two teams. But remember, he has to cover the MJHL as well, and he probably has a schedule as demanding as some NHL broadcasters when you're running around covering so many teams, and he can probably appreciate something that I always subscribe to as a play-by-play broadcaster, is not to be too big of a homer. And he probably doesn't have the option to be a big homer because he's broadcasting for so many different teams. Coming up, we will have the NASCAR report with Sharky, and in hour 3, press coverage with Glen Suitor. You are watching and listening to the Sportscage on the Rough Rider Broadcast Network, 620 CKRM.
The Country Music Rewind with Colin Lovequist.
Hi, it's Cody Clayton in for Colin Lovequist. We're going to head back to the year 1995, the first year Regina hosted the Grey Cup. We've got Wade Hayes, Sammy Kershaw, George Dukas, Toby Keith, and the Johners all lined up and ready to go.
The Country Music Rewind with Colin Lovequist. Brought to you by Crawford's No Frills. Saturday afternoons at 4 and Sunday afternoons at 1 on Country's Greatest Hits, 620 CKRM. 620 CKRM on location.
The Blitz is on. 29th Annual Willow Bunch Golf Club Auto Lotto. Take the car, maybe grab the cash. The choice is yours. We're going to give you plenty of options. We've got some subsidiary draws to make. We've got the second prize and the $14,000 towards the recreation vehicle. We've got the Eberassa snowmobile. We've got, of course, your choice for the grand prize, $60,000 lotto cash towards the purchase of a brand new vehicle from Nelson GM in Assiniboia, or take cash, $50,000. But to have a choice, you need a ticket. Ask about that 50-50, 1 for 10, 5 for 25, 15 for 50. Pick up your tickets now. Visa, MasterCard, 1-866-729-3478. That's 1-866-729-3478.
What's going on in the markets? When is the right time to invest? What should you do with your money today? When Len had questions, he talked to Brian Gawley.
Brian and I sat down, spent quite a bit of time with me initially, and explained to me how he does things, how his business works, and I was pretty impressed. So ever since then, I've moved everything over, and I've been really happy with him.
Don't guess with your money this RRSP season. Call Brian Gawley at Smart Investing Solutions.
I would recommend him to anyone.
546-2533.
Access is connected where it counts, in your community and in your home. And right now, we're making it more affordable for you to stay connected at the acreage, the cabin, or the farm. With Access Rural Internet for as low as $69.95 for 24 months. Plus, you can add Access Next TV Stream and keep an eye on things with Access Rural Security. Stay connected, stay local. With fast, reliable, homegrown solutions from Access Communications. Visit myaccess.ca to sign up.
Get it hot, get it fast, Western Pizza.
The days are shorter, it's colder out, so you're heading home, and your stomach is making that sound like it's sucking up to your spine. How about a delicious Western pizza? Imagine it, a golden, crispy crust holding a mountain of melty cheese, savory pepperoni, fresh veggies, and that perfect drizzle of sauce. Every bite is warm and exactly what your cold, hungry self ordered. Western Pizza. Dine in or take out today, before your stomach starts making demands.
And get it hot, get it fast, Western Pizza.
The Sports Cage Clutch Performer, brought to you by Kellen Solar. 35 years of experience, moving water from a dugout or well without electricity. Visit kellensolar.com to find out more about your livestock operation.
So for today's Kellen Solar Clutch Performer, Benny Walchuk stole some of my thunder, but Sienna Murray from Saskatoon reffing the women's Olympic gold medal game. That's an incredible stage to be on. And we've had lots of good refs, not just in hockey. I think of Mick Magoo, and there have been many others, but also, I think Mick's more legendary just for his personality and firing Darcy Tucker into the penalty box, which was about the most hilarious thing you ever saw. But also Stu Sherwater and a few others in Major League Baseball. But that's a really big deal for her to be able to officiate in the Olympic Games, especially involving Team Canada when they don't want refs from either Canada or the U.S. in a Canada-U.S. game. Colson, you had someone else in mind.
Yeah, I got to give mine to the Cottage Grove and St. Paul U12 girls teams in Minnesota. I don't recall if it was a semifinal or quarterfinal or if it was a final. But they started their game on Monday, and they finished yesterday. They played 12 overtimes. That is insane.
So they were just going all night in overtime, and then they stopped, and then they stayed overnight, and then they just continued the game?
They played 6 overtimes on the day they started the game.
So nine periods total.
Correct. And then...
That was on Tuesday.
Monday was when it started.
Okay.
I imagine it stopped on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday morning.
Yeah. And then they took a break. And then I think it was Wednesday they came back, played 4 more periods of overtime. It was still tied 1-1. Took another break. League kind of decided, okay, we'll let them do 2 more overtimes, get to 12, and at that point we're just going to shootout because this is getting ridiculous. So, yeah, that is insane. And then I managed to grab some of the footage here, but there were apparently just ridiculous saves all over. And then here's the shootout winning goal for Cottage Grove, which that's an absolute marathon, playing effectively 5 games of hockey over 3 days.
I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah.
I think at the NHL level, I remember the one game that stands out to me was in, I remember it like yesterday, in the year 2000. It was the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. They were in the second round, and I want to say it was game 6. Philly was like do or die. And I think it was Keith Primo scored the winner. And I don't know if it was the 4th overtime or the 5th overtime. But I just remember, kind of embarrassing to admit this, but in high school I wasn't a very good science student. Like I couldn't do chemistry or physics. And I remember there was one course that I needed to pass or I was not going to graduate.
Uh-huh.
And I had this big assignment that I had procrastinated, hadn't done all year, and we're getting close to the end of the year. I need to get this done.
Yeah.
And I'm working on it, and then I fall asleep. Then I wake up, I do some more work on it, and then I start wondering, I wonder who won that game, the Flyers or the Penguins. And I turn on the TV, and it's like after midnight by this point. And this is a game in the Eastern time zone, so I'm hoping to catch the late highlights or around midnight.
Yep.
And the game was still going.
Yep.
And ultimately, Keith Primo got the winner. So it was one of those games, but even that game I don't think could hold a candle to going 12 periods. Or sorry, was it 12 periods or 12 overtimes?
It was 12 overtimes.
12 so 15 periods
exactly.
Plus the shootout.
Plus the shootout, which I have no idea how long the shootout went. I didn't catch that part of it, but...
Spread out over 3 days.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
They did Wednesday, Thursday.
So today, the game ended today.
No, it would have been Tuesday and Wednesday. Dang, yeah. Just 3 days.
3 days. Yeah, unbelievable. I've never heard of anything like that. That's kind of like the Fog Bowl, where they weren't able to finish the game. And there have been some football games, very rarely, over the last 100 years, where because of weather conditions, they suspend play and then they finish the next day.
Yeah, which I think all of our rules now are the only way you suspend play and finish is if the game doesn't start, like the Smoke Bowl that happened to us.
Yeah, and some didn't like that either.
Yeah, that one I can kind of understand because, again, the game hasn't started yet. But I forget exactly what the rules are, but I think once you're into the second quarter, if the game gets suspended, they usually just call it now, depending on the score and stuff like that. But another thing, you reminded me of a story of, I think it was 3 years ago. I remember the one team was Edmonton, the Elks, and I forget who they were playing, but there was the lightning delay.
Against Hamilton? I think I know what game you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think that happened just this last season.
It wasn't this last season. It was three or so ago, because it was the one that started the triggering of consistently revamping the weather rules over the next 2 seasons. It was the first one where they said, okay, this is what's happening now. Because it was almost like a 2-hour delay or something, because I was working late at my old job then, and I got home at probably 12:30 or whatever, and my dad's sitting in the front room watching the TV, and I'm like, well, what are you watching? He's like, the football game's still on. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, I thought it was done too, but I just came in here, turned it on to see highlights, and I'm like, oh, the game's second half's just starting.
You know what? I never had a problem with the league or any league trying to get the game in and bending over backwards. Like even the Smoke Bowl, it was a Friday night, and some people were mad. And you know what? The Roughriders probably were open to criticism for not giving us updates. You know, because it was just radio silence, but for probably 90 minutes, I want to say. But I remember thinking, well, if they don't have anything to tell us, what difference does it make? And when you have everybody there, the last thing you'd want to do is send everybody home and watch it all clear up because of the disruption that happens after the fact. Now, I know Trevor Harris said after, we'd been sitting around in our gear for hours. Like, at least if we hadn't put the gear on, it might not have been so bad.
Yeah.
But if you've been sitting around, it's not just an inconvenience, uncomfortable thing for the players, but it becomes a safety issue pretty quick, because there's a reason why they give them all that time before the game starts to just get their mind right, to be quiet, because it's such a dangerous game and everything else that comes with it. I didn't think that the Riders did much wrong in how they handled that, because that's such a nuisance to reschedule. Lucky for them, they were able to play it the next day. And I had family visiting from BC who wouldn't have been able to go Friday night, and they ended up getting to take in the game. And the Rough Riders lost on that Saturday afternoon, but it was still good that they were able to get it in. And you just hope that that's not a sign of things to come with all the forest fire BS up north, that we're going to have more of that, sadly, in the summer months. And it's something we have to think about. It's not like the Fog Bowl that was a once-in-a-lifetime event. This is stuff that's happening more and more, and we're going to have more and more of those weather delays. That's going to happen when you play in an outdoor football stadium, which is what we're with. And I think football outdoors is better anyways.
Absolutely.
But that's one of the occupational hazards, and the Rough Riders will continue to deal with that and manage it as best they can, as will other teams throughout Canada, particularly Western Canada. Okay, enough of all that nonsense. Coming up, we will check in with Sharky on this week's NASCAR Report. You are watching the Sportscage and listening on the Rough Rider Broadcast Network, 620 CKRM.
If you've got a Steelcraft garage door, you've got a door with parts manufactured and assembled right here in Canada. A door with better insulation and seal, plus a warranty you're probably never going to use. And if you don't have a Steelcraft garage door, you should get one. Don't just hang a door, install a Steelcraft. Turn curb appeal into curb envy.
Steelcraft door, Steelcraft door, Steelcraft door. We offer more.
Steel-craft.ca.
620 CKRM on location.
The Blitz is on. 29th Annual Willow Bunch Golf Club Auto Lotto. Take the car, maybe grab the cash. The choice is yours. We're going to give you plenty of options. We've got some subsidiary draws to make. We've got the second prize and the $14,000 towards the recreation vehicle. We've got the Eberassa snowmobile. We've got, of course, your choice for the grand prize, $60,000 lotto cash towards the purchase of a brand new vehicle from Nelson GM in Assiniboia. Or take cash, $50,000. But to have a choice, you need a ticket. Ask about that 50-50, 1 for 10, 5 for 25, 15 for 50. Pick up your tickets now. Visa, MasterCard, 1-866-729-3478. That's 1-866-729-3478.
The Early Bird Spring Sale is on now at Extreme Hockey and Sport. The entire store is 15 to 25% off. Brands like Yeti, CCM, Bauer, all clothing and apparel. If it's in stock, it's on sale, and it must go to make room for new product. All purchases in February qualify for a custom Yeti summer package valued at $5,000. Locally owned, community-focused Extreme Hockey and Sport. 1425 McIntyre Street, conveniently located at the Cooperator Center, and online at extremehockey.net.
Back to our regular spot, Pump Jacks Cathedral.
You know, I thought Pump Jacks was a kind of boot polish till last month.
What are you getting?
Kerwin's crispy ribs and a cold pint of local craft. Crispy, meaty, beautiful.
You had me a meaty.
Plus, we got live music on the weekends, big screens. This place is basically my second marriage.
And way cheaper than the first.
On the corner of Albert and 13th, Pump Jack's Cathedral Saloon and Steakhouse. Come early, stay late. The place where friends meet.
The Sportscage NASCAR Report, where rubbin' is racing, is brought to you by Croft Electric. 27 years of trusted, reliable home, farm, and commercial service for all your electrical needs. Visit croftelectric.com and on all socials.
All right, and for that NASCAR report, we'll go out to the Shark Man who knows his NASCAR inside and out. And I just wanted to ask you, I grew up in a household where nobody really watched sports at all or cared about, football, hockey, any of the rest of it. But I was raised by a mechanic who wouldn't, just love NASCAR. And that just happened to be the one sport that I never got into and never understood. So did you get arm twisted into it, or have you always loved NASCAR like a lot of our listeners do?
Brought into it by Danny Crofts at Croft Electric. Danny said, let's start a pool and let's get us watching the races together. And since we got in, and they say that once you're in one of those pools, once you're in some sort of fantasy league or whatever, that you become a fan. And that's how it took place for me. And now I'm following the sport regularly and I'm a big fan.
I was kind of a fan of it for a while, especially when Jacques Villeneuve was winning all the time, because, hey, if somebody from Canada is doing well, all of a sudden I didn't care that a lot of it had to do with the engine, and I started to appreciate what the drivers actually have to do, and sometimes we don't give them enough credit either. What have you got for us on this week's report?
Well, I'll tell you what a race we had on Sunday. Daytona lived up to the billing, and it was a great start to the 26 NASCAR season. 25 of 41 drivers led a lap, and there were 6 lead changes on the final lap alone. Tyler Reddick only led one lap once, and it was at the finish line. His number 45 Toyota with Michael Jordan as one of the owners picked up their first win of the season, obviously, after a rough 2025 season. Tyler Reddick gets back in the win column, being one of the final 4 drivers in 24, yet he did not win a race last year. Great start to the season, but this week the excitement does not wane as the tour moves to Echo Park Speedway outside of Atlanta for the Auto Trader 400. This is a 1.5 mile speedway, sets up as one of the standard ovals for the NASCAR season. And now we find out if the regulars are back for 2026. Hamlin, Larson, Byron Elliott, and last week's Reddick are all in the mix. Christopher Bell has to be considered a favorite as he's last year's winner of this race. The drivers to watch, if you're in your pool, Daniel Suarez races well here with 4 top 5s in the last races, as well as Austin Cedric matches that. And finally, the big mover from last week, Carson Hocevar, who had a great race at Daytona, might be somebody to throw in your pool as you prepare for this week's fantasy list. Remember the new playoff format? Top 16 are in the playoffs. No longer does one win get you in the playoffs. Drivers have to go for it each and every week, so it's a completely different format. It's going to be really exciting to watch what happens week 2 in Atlanta. There you go. That's our NASCAR report for our friends Croft Electric.
Beautiful. Thanks for getting us all up to speed on that, and we'll be watching. We'll talk again next week.
Cheers. Take care.
And that is Sharky with this week's NASCAR report for Croft Electric. And still coming up on this edition of the program, we will be checking in with Glen Suitor in hour 3, as well as Arash Madani. And, we were talking about the different Rough Rider teams who have had to try to repeat in championships, and this is their 5th crack at it. And if I do my ranking, I think that this is probably the second best defending championship squad that they've ever had. I think that their best shot at it was probably after they won their first Grey Cup in 1967. The very next year, it was Canada's centennial. And so they met the Hamilton Ticats in the Grey Cup in a game that was played in Ottawa. There's some great film from the National Film Board. It's on YouTube. You can find it online. And there's all this colored film of like Ron Lancaster and Hugh Campbell and George Reed, and they look like kids. Like Ron honestly looks like he's 15 years old in that footage. They're trying to defend their Grey Cup championship in the game and got blown out. The final was 27-1, a loss to the Ticats, who had a god-awful logo that year. It was a big maple leaf under the Ticat logo. And that was their best crack at it, I think, of all of the championship teams that they've had so far. I don't know that too many people took them seriously to defend after winning in 89, because that was a team that wasn't supposed to get to the Grey Cup to begin with their 9-9 record. And I don't know that too many people took them all that serious to defend their championship in 2008 after winning the year before, because you might remember Kerry Joseph was the MOP who they traded away after the season to the Toronto Argonauts. So they were rolling with, it was going to be Steven Giles, and then they decided to roll with Marcus Crandall. Crandall gets hurt close to mid-season. Darian Durant was in the mix, but at the time, we really didn't know what Darian was, and he suffered through some injuries. So at the end of that 2008 season, we were really stuck with Michael Bishop at quarterback, who turned the ball over a lot in that Western semifinal. And then another team that had a really good crack at it was after 2013, because they came back with Darian Durant as quarterback. They had an 8-2 record and were looking great, but then Durant got injured and was out for the rest of the season. And there on in was a complete and total disaster. The only victory that Kerry Joseph, well, first they had Tino Sunseri, then it was Jared Dagey. Or was it Seth Dagey? I get the two mixed up. I think it was Seth Dagey.
I think it was Seth.
Yeah, we had Seth, and then Jared's a lot younger, and he played with Edmonton a little more recently.
Yeah.
And so then ultimately, they had to roll with Kerry Joseph. And when I say had to, I say that loosely. I think they could have found better options. That was not one of Brendan Taman's finer moments, bringing a 41-year-old off the couch. And it not only... Kerry got the one victory. It not only did not give the Roughriders a very good crack at winning in the playoffs, in my view, it also kind of, left a sour taste in my mouth with the last moment of Kerry Joseph. I felt like they set him up to fail, thinking that at age 41 he could come off the couch and come and perform, and he had that miserable turnover-filled playoff loss in Edmonton, and their chances just went down the tubes. Now, I'm bringing up all these historical thoughts in trying to figure out where does this team fit in as far as its chance to repeat. And I guess you could argue, I don't think that they're any better than the 67 team, because that was a team that was still very much in its prime with Ron Lancaster, George Reed. We have some age concerns with this Rough Rider team, particularly at quarterback. And so I think you might even put them into the same category as that 2014 team that had its own opportunity to defend as a champion, derailed by quarterback injury. That's a real possibility when you've got somebody who's 40 years old, which Trevor Harris will be by the time the season begins.
Mm-hmm. I think I've heard, and I'm trying to remember exactly which year, but I think I've heard Luke, maybe Darian and Wes as well, say that they were a better team in 2008 than 2007. And if the coaches didn't pick Bishop, if they had picked Darian, which I think Luke has very emphatically said, Darian was the guy. If Kerry's gone, then Darian's should be the guy, but they went with Bishop. And I think Luke very firmly believes if they had Darian and had a season as would have been expected, that they would have been repeating that year. And then I also, which year was it? Was it 2011 when Darian got really injured as well or something?
2014.
It was 2014?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I was thinking there was one of the earlier years too where he suffered an injury, but because Luke talks about there was another year where they were really going after it, but then Darian got hurt and that threw everything out.
Yeah,
right?
that's the year he's thinking of, I'm sure of it. Because they were 8-2 and they were rolling as defending champs in 2014.
I'm not sure though, because I think it was Luke was still playing then and he wasn't playing in 2014.
Okay. All right.
That's where I'm not sure. Again, I'm speaking on their behalf, and I don't remember exactly, so I should just get my facts straight next time. But
no, that's okay. You wouldn't be the first guy, and you won't be the last. It's okay.
Yeah.
No, I would agree. I would agree with what Luke said about the 2008 team, but hindsight's also 2020 because at the time, look, I was covering the team. I was on the ground with the team every day missed some of the road games, but in 2006 and 2007. Mm-hmm. And Durant was brought into the mix in 2006, and he was seen as just a fill-in guy. I think he was the fourth-string guy, really, or maybe he was the third guy on the roster. And then in 2007, the Riders signed Drew Tate, who had been this big star at Iowa, and the thinking was he was probably the odds-on favorite to push Darian out the door. So even in 2007, Darian being around was not a sure thing.
Yeah.
And so you get to 2008, and I want to say Darian showed flashes of it early. Then he had some injury problems, but I agree with them that maybe Ken Miller's worst moment as head coach, and I'm not going to say it was the 13th man, might have been starting Michael Bishop in that playoff game and rolling with him for as long as they did, because Bishop had been a really big prospect earlier. People forget Michael Bishop was drafted ahead of Tom Brady and had been a big star at Kansas State, which is a very good, reputable school. I know Kenton Keith's son just committed. I don't know that he's any good. I'm sure he is, based on all the bragging and hype they've been doing for him on social media. I suspect he's a pretty good athlete, and if he's as good as his dad, but I digress. But Bishop had never done well up here. The Argos throughout the 2000s had great defenses led by Rich Stubler. Rich Stubler was the best at his craft in those days, and things were ticking along great until he decided he wanted to be a head coach, and then it just became a total disaster, and I don't know that Rich ever recovered. But with those great defenses they had in Toronto, they won a lot of games with Michael Bishop at quarterback. But his stats were never all that great. His decision-making was never all that great. And I remember flying back to Toronto on a flight with the Argo broadcasters once after they had just pummeled the Roughriders here. And I said, boy, Bishop sure looked good this week. And they said, he hasn't looked that good all season. And they didn't seem all that impressed with him. And sure enough, he blew a tire once they got into the playoffs. So he was very flawed. Everybody knew he was flawed. And that was a dicey proposition going into that playoff game. And I remember Luke has just to add to Luke's point about 2008 being better than 2007, they started 6-0.
Yep.
And that was their best start, I want to say, since the 1930s, like of any Rough Rider team in the modern era of the Canadian Football League. Because the Canadian Football League modern era didn't really start until 1958.
Yeah.
And somebody who was hosting a call-in show on another station that we never speak of told me that the call-in shows were dreadful during that time because nobody had anything to complain about. People were just calling in, just happy-go-lucky. And then they eventually stubbed their toe against Calgary in game number 7.
Yeah.
In a game where I remember Adarius Bowman had this great opportunity to step up and he didn't. And then they had some midseason struggles. They got rid of Marcus Crandall, etc. But it was really impressive. I actually thought that season was probably Crandall's best work as a pro. Because other than winning the 2001 Grey Cup MOP with Calgary in a game where he had a completion percentage of less than 50%, had a very unremarkable career. And I say that with total love because Marcus Crandall is one of my favorite football people ever. I think he would be the first to begrudgingly admit that. But in that season, he was their steadiest hand that they had through that 6-0 start. But once they lost back-to-back games, I recall they were coming up on mid-season where you have to, if he's still on the roster by a certain date, you have to pay him for the rest of the year. And they decided, well, he's making decent money. He's maybe topped out as far as his potential. We've got all these younger quarterbacks like Giles, like Bishop, like Darian, and they made a business decision to move on from Marcus. I will forever wonder if the best decision might not have been to just keep Marcus at that point, even if he wasn't healthy, because, boy, we sure would have loved to have seen him in that Western semifinal loss to the BC Lions, and that was a really important moment in franchise history because that could have been the very first team ever to repeat as Grey Cup champions, and it didn't happen. The Stampeders won the Grey Cup that year. I don't know if we would have got through Henry Burris and them, but sure would have been fun to find out. And yes, I agree with anybody who says keeping Michael Bishop was a bad decision. Hindsight is always 20/20, but there was lots of data at that point in time where a lot of us knew that this was a dicey proposition even going into it. On the comments line, Jeffrey Townend 597 says Stubler went on to be the DC with the Stamps after his Toronto days and was great. And that's true, but not as great as he was when he was running the Argo defense. Rich Stubler's heyday was with Edmonton when they won the Grey Cup in 93 and then with the Argos throughout the 2000s. Definitely a big part of that 04 Grey Cup win and also a big part of why Damon Allen had so much success well into his 40s. I take nothing away from Damon Allen, but when you have great defenses like that,
certainly helps.
Sure makes an aging quarterback look a lot better. Just ask Trevor Harris about that, who's going to be age 40 right away.
Yeah. By the way, I had it right here. Michael Bishop was drafted 227th overall in the 99 draft. and then Brady was number 199 in the 2000.
Oh, okay.
Draft.
Well, errors and omissions there.
Yeah.
I got beat on one.
It's all good. He was
drafted, you know what I think it was? They weren't drafted. Go ahead.
He was drafted a year ahead, but he was drafted lower in a lower round.
You know where I think I got that wrong? Bishop was on the depth chart with New England in 2000. He was ahead of Brady on the depth chart.
Yes.
So he wasn't drafted ahead of him. So I stand corrected. You know what? You're like Tony Reale from Pardon the Interruption, how he does like errors and omissions.
Sure.
Or you don't?
I'm not familiar.
You're too young to even know who Tony Reale is. I was going to say you millennial punks, but you're not even old enough to be a millennial.
I straddle the line. The line when you people start going, which year are you? And you get to the lines between the generations, and you're one of those people, it gets very blurry.
I'm on that line too. I call them punks, and I think I'm a millennial. I think by definition I fit in very barely. But anyways. And that's all we have on that. Coming up in hour 3, we'll have a lot more Olympic talk with Glen Suitor and Arash Madani. We'll maybe talk a bit of CFL football. And also, I want to get into it with Arash about MLB salary cap and what that would do to the Toronto Blue Jays. I have a good NFL comparison to that in explaining why it's probably not a good thing for Blue Jay fans. That and a whole bunch more coming up on this edition of the Sports Cage for Access Communications on the Roughrider Broadcast Network, 620 CKRM.
Boat shows are expensive, and somebody has to pay for them. At Kevin's Marine, you don't. Their indoor showroom in Fort Capel is packed with Lund Mercury boats without the high price tag, and those savings are passed on to you. Lund's proven construction and performance paired with Mercury's power and reliability makes choosing your next boat easy. Hurry in for factory rebates and discounts of up to $7,500 plus a 7-year Mercury factory warranty. It's all happening now at Kevin's Marine in Fort Capel. Visit kevinsmarine.com.
Every successful season starts with a plan. You check the books, walk the yard, and talk through what worked and what didn't. Canada's Farm Show Regina, Saskatchewan, presented by Bunge, is where those conversations turn into action. Meet the people, tools, and ideas that will take your season to the next level. From March 17th to 19th at Real District in Regina, discover new partnerships, innovative equipment, and opportunities you can't afford to miss. Canada's Farm Show, where big deals grow. Visit Canada's Farm Show Regina SK.ca today.
Are you overwhelmed by debt and getting non-stop calls from creditors? It can feel like there's no escape. Debt doesn't have to be a life sentence. A single call can turn things around. My name is Jasmine Brown. I'm a licensed insolvency trustee at BDO right here in Regina. I can help you become debt-free with a solution just for you. Let's put an end to those calls from creditors together. Call 1-833-BDO-TALK or visit bdodebt.ca to discover your debt-free future.
Access is connected where it counts, in your community and in your home. And right now, we're making it more affordable for you to stay connected at the acreage, the cabin, or the farm. With Access Rural Internet for as low as $69.95 for 24 months. Plus, you can add Access Next TV Stream. And keep an eye on things with Access Rural Security. Stay connected, stay local. With fast, reliable, homegrown solutions from Access Communications. Visit myaccess.ca to sign up.
Country Corner, brought to you by Municipal Hail Insurance. Proudly serving farmers. MunicipalHail.ca.
Take in the excitement of the Fort Winter Festival, February 27th to March 1st in Fort Capel. Ice drifters, polar bear dip, horse-drawn wagon rides, and so much more. Full list of events and times at fortwinterfestival.com. The Hospitals of Regina Foundation Home Lottery is back with a ton of prizes up for grabs, including the $1.8 million grand prize show home. Proceeds support healthcare in Regina's 3 hospitals. Early bird ticket deadline April 17th. HRFHomeLottery.com. And saddle up for the PBR Touring Series, Saturday, April 25th at the Temple Garden Center in Moose Jaw. World-class bull riding showcasing the next generation of elite bull riders alongside seasoned veterans hungry to climb the PBR ranks. Grab your tickets at sasktix.ca.
For more information, visit 620ckrm.com. It's time for the Sports Ticker. The Early Bird Spring Sale is on now at Extreme Hockey. 15 to 25% off store-wide. 1425 McIntyre Street. Online at extremehockey.net. And now open in Moose Jaw.
Well, heartbreak for Canada in women's hockey. Canada falling 2-1 to the United States in overtime earlier today. Canada led the game for the majority as Kristen O'Neill scored early in the second period, and they were just hanging on. Maybe that was what killed them ultimately. Maybe playing not to lose, I'm not sure. But gave up the tying goal with just over 2 minutes to go, and then losing in overtime. Megan Keller, the OT hero for Team USA. And so we lose out in women's hockey. Canada back on the ice in men's hockey tomorrow morning in that semifinal game against Finland, 7:40 puck drop. I'll have to double check that. I don't have it in front of me. I believe it's a 7:40 puck drop Saskatchewan time. And the U.S. is playing against Slovakia in the other semifinals. So pretty good chance Canada is on a collision course to play the United States again in the gold medal game. Also, I should update the medal count. Canada now up to 15 medals. They do get the silver from that loss. 4 gold, 5 silver, 6 bronze, 15 in all, so they are 11th. Norway is leading the charge with 34 medals, including 16, the U.S. in the second position. Curling, Canada's Rachel Homan sneaks into the playoffs. She won 5 straight matches to make the postseason. Got off to a bit of a rocky start this morning, but ended up with a 6-3 victory over South Korea, and will advance on to the semifinals. Canada's Brad Jacobs on the men's side, losing 8-6 to Norway, but that's okay. They'd already clinched a playoff spot. They will be in the semifinal. It'll be a rematch against Norway. That is your Thursday sports ticker for Extreme Hockey and Sport. Whatever your spring sport is, Extreme Hockey has you covered. Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz with you here in hour 2 of the Sports Cage. And I was going to ask you, we were talking a little bit about the medal count just a moment ago, Colson, and I know Dave was talking about this earlier this week, I think with Arash, wondering if all of a sudden, because Canada's doing, I think, okay, but not where we once were. At 2010 in Vancouver, we had that great Own the Podium program that was so much fun. I mean, I don't know much about the behind the scenes. They had hired this high-powered lawyer out of Quebec, Marcel Aubu, to run it. He was the same guy who ran the Quebec Nordiques for a long time. Then he got embroiled in some scandal. I think it was probably the hashtag #MeToo scandal, and he was kicked to the side. Now, I'm not saying that's why the program has faltered. I don't know enough about what happens behind the scenes. Maybe it's just not well funded enough. But do you wonder if more of our tax dollars in the years ahead are going to start to drift over to our Olympic program to maybe get back close to where we were, if not number 1, just better than number 15, which is where we are right now? Still time, I'm sure we'll creep up with some of the medals that'll still come in at the end, but it's not what we're used to. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think Vancouver's a bit of a one-off too, with it being on home soil, right? It's the same thing as the 2013 Grey Cup. It's extra special because it's on home. But yeah, it's a big question of not just the investment dollars, but like everyone talks about these days how hockey, sign-up numbers? Registration. There we go. Hockey registration numbers are down across the board, right? So it's not just a matter of having the elite facilities for the elite athletes. I think it's also a matter of having the facilities and the accessibility for the youth and for the kids. Because you don't find your Michael Kingsbury's if he doesn't get into skiing at a young age, right? And that's what we're seeing with Norway, because I told Dave this on Tuesday, I think, but I watched a neat video on how Norway has come to dominate the Winter Olympics. They always have done very well, but especially as of late. And if you know anything about Norway, they have this thing called their Sovereign Wealth Fund, where basically all of their resource money goes into this pot, and the government's limited on how much it can spend, and they put a lot of it into their sports for their youth, and making it both good and then affordable. And so their youth registration in skiing and everything just continues to climb, and they get more athletes in it, which means they're getting more better athletes out of it too. And now you're seeing them with 34 total medals at the Winter Olympics, which is 7 more than the U.S. And the U.S. always has the advantage of just population. But even the U.S. we've been seeing a decline in, because they used to also just kind of handily by numbers own both the Summer and Winter Olympics. But we've been seeing a lot of other countries, whether it's through specialization, because like the Netherlands has been doing really good at speed skating for years, right? So we've been seeing them creep up there, other places like that. But the U.S. usually was just able to throw its weight at it, so to speak, and get a bunch of medals, where we're seeing less so of that.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think, and in the U.S., look, the U.S. should be able to throttle everybody for all the money that they have in that country. And the corporate donors who set up these great facilities, Arash talks about it all the time. I think it's Vail, Colorado, where they have a lot of the Olympic or Winter Olympic training facilities that give them a big leg up on being able to compete. And I don't even know that they need much, if any, government intervention to do that. And then there are other countries like the old Soviet Union and more present-day Russia, where they make it a wing of the government, where it's part of the military. Now, I was going to say, we're hearing stories about Canada having to ramp up its defense spending. So does that count as part of our defense spending, making the Olympic program part of our military?
Defending our ego.
You know, I don't know. But yeah, I'm sure people won't be happy about this. I think really what it comes down to, it's probably not even more tax dollars. It's probably finding, he's kind of become a reprehensible figure, but dare I say, cover your nose, find another Marcelo Boo, but maybe somebody who's a little less icky, who has rich friends, knows people in high places, and that's how you fund the program, like they did in Vancouver with Own the Podium. But you're right, hosting in Vancouver was a bit of a one-off. There were spin-offs from that. And look, it's not like even in 88 in Calgary, that was seen as a big success. Canada didn't win a gold medal in the games that were played in Calgary. The big star, I think, was Elizabeth Manley in women's figure skating, who won a silver medal. So we've come a long way since then. I think, to me, it's just a little bit disappointing because the excuse is there that countries like China are throwing more money at it, and so they've got more athletes who can compete, which is going to make it harder to get medals. But at the same time, you don't have to deal with Russia anymore. And we dealt with Russia for, generations when they were the old Soviet Union. Usually that medal count would be the U.S. and Russia. They'd be fighting neck and neck.
We didn't just deal with them. We intentionally made tournaments just to face off against them, the Summit Series. Right? Yeah. Like, it wasn't just about, oh, yeah, we have to face them. No, we're going out of our way to.
Right. And it was the greatest rivalry, totally. Even, like, it wasn't that long ago that the U.S. was not even that big of a rivalry with a lot of these sports. It was more of a friendly rivalry, especially with hockey.
Yeah.
When the Americans won the World Cup of Hockey in 1996, it used to be called the Canada Cup, then they named it the World Cup, and it was a huge upset in Montreal, and the U.S. had stars like, I think Tkachuk was on that team, like their dad, Keith Tkachuk, Doug Waite, and some of the others, and that sparked like national outrage, like, is this not our game anymore? And that, I feel like from that moment we started taking the U.S. seriously, but we were always still better than them, and it's only been in the last few years where they've crept up, and one of these years, they're going to get us. Right? I'm not saying they're going to get us every year, but they might beat us once or twice. It might happen this year. There's no reason to think they couldn't beat it. It almost happened in that Four Nations Cup. But overall, this is not so much an issue with hockey because, again, we're probably still going to get medals in both sports. It's really an issue with the other sports. Like you talked about Kingsbury. Are we going to have the proper athletes, especially in things like downhill skiing, alpine skiing? That's where we really need to flesh out those athletes. But it is refreshing to turn on the TV and see all the snow that's happening, all of the picturesque mountains in the background. It's not like Beijing that was just totally inappropriate to be hosting a Winter Olympics. I'm not crazy about them going back to Salt Lake City. Not that I don't want them to go to the States. I mean, what's his name isn't going to be president forever, but I just like different places. I don't like going back to the same places over and over, but it's actually a winter place. This looks like a place where the Winter Olympics should be.
Yeah, I didn't mind Sochi because it was a little half and half where you had the mountains, but then you'd come down to the lakeside and it was nice and warm, or oceanside or whatever it is there. But yeah, no, I agree. Winter Olympics should be a winter place. I expect we're going to see a lot more repeats, though, just with how expensive it is these days. And last thing here before we go to break, I figured I should mention this. I don't know if we have yet, but does the name Benoit Richard mean anything to you?
Rings a bell, but no, not really.
French figure skating coach. And he's coaching a few teams at these Olympics. Actually, he's coaching 16 skaters from 13 countries. And there's videos of him going around where they're doing media pictures or whatever with the teams and the coach. And he just switches his jacket as he goes from team to team. Like he's
on multiple teams for the Olympics.
Yeah.
Because the coaches don't really matter. They don't get a medal anyways.
Correct. But yeah, he's coaching 16 skaters from 13 countries at these Olympics. And I'm just like, how good do you have to be where you're essentially owning a category of the Olympics with your students or whatever you want to call them, right?
Well, he's cashing in, and
Exactly.
good for him, because a lot of people who put a lot of work in behind the Olympics aren't able to do that.
Yeah, so I'm like, props to you, man. That's awesome.
Good for him. He should be the clutch performer. Time to break. When we come back, we will check in with Glen Suitor on this week's edition of Press Coverage. You are watching and listening to the Sports Cage on the Rough Rider Broadcast Network, 620 CKRM.
We are 620 CKRM Regina, a Harvard media station.
Good evening, I'm Tanner Wallace-Scribner from the SaskToday.ca newsroom with 620 CKRM News for Echo Sound in Fort Capel. Stay connected with a new cell phone from Echo Sound. Call 306-332-6711 and brought to you by Capital Automotive Group. Capital's 100K giveaway is back. See capital100k.ca for more information. The blizzard from earlier this week is in the past now, and a short bout of extreme cold weather is now in our future. Very cold wind chills near or below -40 are expected, with temperatures improving briefly before dropping again overnight, as Environment Canada has issued a yellow cold advisory for the area. Environment Canada meteorologist Danielle Desjardins explains what's happening now.
We have a ridge of high pressure that's settling into the province for the next about 4 days. It's going to be much below normal.
Extreme cold can be dangerous for anyone, and people are urged to check on seniors, friends, and neighbors. Drivers should keep emergency supplies in their vehicles, such as warm blankets and booster cables, in case of trouble on the road during the cold stretch. With the intense winter storm impacting most of Saskatchewan, Regina's 7 Fires warming shelter is ready to help.
So our warming space is open 4:30 p.m. until 8:30 a.m. We provide snacks and meals throughout that time period, as well as coffee, water, hot chocolate, tea, those kinds of things.
That was Housing Programs Manager Morgan Showcare. She says that they've been seeing some people coming in with frostbite lately. Snow Angels are once again clearing paths for vulnerable residents in Regina. The city-supported program connects volunteers with seniors and people living with disabilities who cannot manage snow removal themselves. Joshua Springer with the Al Ritchie Community Association says volunteers photograph completed work to ensure satisfaction. Meanwhile, in Queen City Eastview, they're seeking 2 to 3 additional volunteers. Program Director Jamie Kleckner says many clients face health challenges and rely on the assistance. Organizers say the efforts are about safety and community support during the winter storms. Saskatchewan NDP leader Carla Beck and justice critic Nicole Sauer joined Deputy Leader Vicky Mowat in calling for stronger action against sex-related crimes. The call follows the detention of Kyle Hamlock after he allegedly breached release conditions. Police had issued a public safety warning ahead of his release and said he was likely to reoffend. Mowat said repeat offenders like him represent an ongoing public safety threat, and pointing to Stats Canada data showing Saskatchewan had the second highest voyeurism rate in the country in 2024. Beck said that the province needs more law enforcement resources and criminal code reforms to protect victims and address the root causes of crime. Sauer added that the government should significantly increase funding for police and victim supports in the upcoming provincial budget. That's 620 CKRM News. Read more stories from around your community and around the province at sasktoday.ca and 620CKRM.com.
Capital's 100K giveaway is back for 2026. The Capital Automotive Group is giving away $100,000 in cash and prizes with no strings attached. We're proud to be part of communities across Western Canada, and we know it's those communities that allow us to exist. So every once in a while, once a year to be exact, we're going to say thanks by giving away $100,000 in cash and prizes. To learn more and enter to win, check out capital100k.ca. Capital's 100K giveaway. Do not miss it.
Picture this. You sit down to watch TV and suddenly your screen freezes harder than a triple axle. If you're ready for a smoother routine, Echo Sound, your SaskTel authorized dealer, has a better idea. Max TV Stream. More streaming, less buffering. A performance that actually sticks the landing. And while you're at it, glide into fast SaskTel internet and cell phone packages that are balanced, reliable, and make sense for your household. Smart entertainment, smart connectivity. Echo Sound, your SaskTel authorized dealer in Fort Qu'Appelle. EchoSound.ca.
And your precision weather forecast is brought to you by Line-X Regina. Serious protection, killer looks. 1865 McCarra Street.
Finally, as the wind comes down tonight, with a partly cloudy sky, we fall off to -23. A much calmer stretch of weather ahead through the weekend, but it's going to stay very chilly. Only -18 once again tomorrow. Mostly sunny sky with a gentle breeze. Mostly sunny on Saturday. Again, -18, even a cooler morning at -27. Then a slow warm-up begins early week, partly sunny, -17 on Sunday. And on Monday, a little more cloudiness. There's a chance for a couple of flurries at night, but the daytime is dry and it's not looking like anything heavy. Temperature at -7 for Monday afternoon. With your 620 CKRM weather forecast, I'm Precision Weather Meteorologist Phil Spivak.
For 40 years, the team from Line-X Regina has been protecting vehicles across Saskatchewan, and we're changing with the times. 3 generations of our family have protected your vehicles. Our business has evolved, and we're not stopping now. The next generation is here. Same family, same commitment, ready for the next generation of truck beds, rocker panels, trailers, bumpers, and running boards in all kinds of colors. Line-X Regina, 1865 McCarra Street, the next generation of protective coatings.
Broadcasting from Century Studios in downtown Regina, Harvard Media presents The Sports Cage, where Saskatchewan comes to talk local sports. Brought to you by Access Communications, trusted in rural Saskatchewan for internet, TV, and home security. Be part of the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262. The Sports Cage. Streaming at sportscage.com, our YouTube channel, and on the radio at 620 CKRM.
Hour 3 of the Thursday Sports Cage for Access Communications, trusted in rural Saskatchewan for internet, TV, and home security. Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz taking you through this edition of the program. A little bit later on, we're going to talk about all the worry with Major League Baseball maybe bringing in a salary cap for 2027, or there might not even be a season at all. There's lots of turmoil with the Players Association. But what I want to talk about when we bring in Arash Madani is, would that really be good or bad for the Toronto Blue Jays? I think it would be good for getting a second Major League Baseball team in Canada, but it would not be good for the Toronto Blue Jays. But before we get to that, it's time to check in with our next guest coming on Coast to Coast with Glen Suitor press coverage. Check that. A little rusty at this. With Glen Suitor joining us from the left coast. And Suits, I know you're a football guy, but I know you've covered lots of other things. Did they at TSN get you to cover a lot of Olympic events? Did they let you out of your football silo for that?
Yeah, not really. No, not when it came to the Olympics. But I did early on in my career want to convince the brass at TSN that I could do more than just, do the analysis of Canadian football, and that I could be a reporter and I could talk about the Canucks or, do whatever, whether Super Bowl for sure, which I covered a couple of them, and also reporting on the Canucks and things like that. So I saw a lot of hockey. It was an interesting time. Mark Messier was a Vancouver Canuck at that time, so I was going to every Canuck game and filing stories after the game. And we talked a couple of weeks ago about the big was it Brashear with the stick over the head?
Nick Sorley, yeah.
Nick Sorley and all that stuff. That that was a night that I was working. I turned to my colleague David Pratt, who had been a long time reporter in Vancouver. I'm sure you've heard the name.
Oh yeah,
Brendan, and he was excellent at putting together a 3-minute to 4-minute story that was going to go into Sports Center and getting all the elements necessary. So when that happened, I turned to him and I said, what are we going to do here? Because I was a young reporter at the time. And he turns to me and he said, you go to the visitors room. I'm going to go and get some sound. You got to say what happened, what were you thinking, who's talking, all of those stuff. I'm going to take the Canucks room. We'll meet in the middle, and then we're going to talk about why, what happens, and what this means. And it was a story that had legs for, as you know, for months, when in the NHL.
Yeah, and I remember, listen, I'm a lifelong Canuck fan, so I remember this all like yesterday, but I remember there was a quote that they dug from that where Todd Bertuzzi said something like, none of that belongs in the game. He should be banned for life. And of course, 4 years later, he was involved in a similar incident. So
yeah, exactly. But no, to your point on the Olympics, definitely watch the hockey game. I'm watching, and trying to, watch as much Olympic hockey as I can. I enjoy it. First off, my first impression of that quarterfinal, man, Connor McDavid, I'm not sure why there is even any debate ever about who the best player on the planet is. I mean, I just, when you're looking at basically best against best, I know the roster creation is a little bit different. You want a different style of player and different roles and things like that. So there are some good players that didn't go to Italy, but I just look at his speed and how he gets so many. He gets first of all the attention of so many of his opponents, but also it's like this panic sets in as soon as he starts wheeling, and with his hands and his just his overall skill. I just don't think there's a player on the planet that. I know there's still debate, and Crosby was in that discussion and all of that. But anyway, he was the first thing that jumped off the page to me. And then when I saw Crosby go down, Brendan, it brought up the old thought to me and this old debate as to should pros be in the Olympics? And because if Connor McDavid went down due to injury, knock on wood that he doesn't, but if he goes down due to injury, as we saw Crosby went down that quarterfinal game, where does that leave the Oilers? Where does that leave all the money invested from Oiler fans? I know they want a gold medal. I get it. And I've heard the argument constantly of well, we want to see in the Olympics best against best. But don't we see best against best at the amateur level? In other words, the World Junior Tournament sort of would take over as the Olympic tournament if that happened, and maybe the World Junior Tournament becomes a seeding tournament for the Olympics. But however you break it down, should it still be all amateurs in the Olympics? Because you lose some of these guys for your NHL team, and you've invested tons of money. I don't know. It creates the debate again. I just watched Crosby get hurt and walk to the locker room, and I thought, yikes! You don't want to see it.
Yeah, and we've seen that with John Tavares. I remember when he was still with the Islanders, he got hurt in the Olympics, and then his season was ended. And Garth Snow was the GM of the Islanders, and he was some peeved about it. And I guess you can kind of see where he was coming from. I think it's an insurance issue, like who's going to foot the bill, because the player's still going to get paid regardless. And it took them years, but I think they've sorted that part out. It's collectively bargained, and it's clear the players want to do this. I even think for somebody like a Connor McDavid, it would be an issue, but he happens to play in the same country that he's representing in the Olympics. I think to your point, the people in Pittsburgh might not be so enthusiastic if they lose their star player who was representing another country. It'd be different if he was playing for Team USA, but because he's playing for Team Canada, that's probably where you open up that issue. Mark McGuire, the slugger who was a big hero until we found out that he cheated, but that's irregardless. He played on Team USA in baseball in the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles. You might remember that. You would have been probably a rookie for the Roughriders at the time. And he had that experience, but he was still a college player at the time. He was very much vehemently opposed to major leaguers playing in the Olympics because he said the amateurs who get that experience, that is their life. And for major leaguers, that's not their life. And I was thinking about at the Four Nations Cup last year when Wayne Gretzky came out. And remember, he got a lot of heat because he didn't put the jersey on and he just gave the little thumbs up. And I personally, just my view, I thought a lot of the heat was deserved. Whereas Mike Eruzione, he had been the amateur who had been on Miracle on Ice. He's high-fiving guys. You can tell, like, he's living for this moment. And it was this amazing thing. I don't know. It didn't bother me when we didn't have the best players. I remember being over the moon excited to watch in Nagano in '98 when we finally had the NHL players. I could go one way or the other. Here's one thing where I draw the line. This talk that we need to have a World Cup best on best every 2 years, I think a big reason why that Four Nations Cup was amazing last year was because of the politics, obviously.
Yes.
But the scarcity, right? We haven't seen McDavid and Crosby play together in a best on best. Connor McDavid was almost 30. I'm not saying that we want that in the future where they have to wait till almost 30, but I think you lose a little bit of luster when you do this more than once every 4 years. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I agree. And and to your point about Gretzky, he's taking a lot of heat right now, isn't he?
Yeah, he still is. The heat hasn't ended. I think it kind of started right around then. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, you make a good point. And I still think though I can make an argument that you will be seeing the best players at the amateur level if you don't allow pros. And I know they want it. I know they want to go. Basketball wants to go. I get it. In fact, I'm looking forward to seeing what the flag football roster looks like in a couple of years in the Olympics and how many Canadian NFL or CFL players are on that team. It won't be, as Barney and I have talked about many times, it won't be filled with pros. There's going to be some specialists that are flag football specialists that'll be on that team that aren't playing pro right now. So I'm not sure how many will come from the CFL or the NFL, but I'm looking forward to seeing, what that looks like on the Olympic stage against the rest of the world, but also, will we see the same popularity in it? I think the genie's out of the bottle when it comes to the NHL being there because the Winter Olympics, the organizers are looking at that going, the ratings go through the roof when hockey is on. So, I think a lot of people watch the Olympics. They watch different events. Certainly, if they have family attached or attachment with a friend or a colleague or someone that lives in your city, you're watching them in their sport. But when it comes to hockey, there's just mass appeal. I mean, better than anybody that the price for those tickets for the gold medal games and things like that are through the roof. And I don't even think they sell tickets for other events in a lot of ways. So, I think the genie's out of the bottle. I just wonder if that debate should come up again. I think about the investment made in a pro player, and we can't say guys that get paid anymore. We can't say that because you get paid in college now. So down
some
in the
guys.
States. Yeah, so some guys get paid big time in college down in the States now. So it's not about just getting paid. It's about once you've committed to the pro level and you're now representing a city or in some cases an entire province, the money that's invested in you from fans and from the organization, and yes, they're covered insurance. The player will be taken care of if he's hurt. But what happens to the team, especially in hockey, or, if our quarterback breaks his finger in a flag football tournament, it could affect that. He comes back. Let's say it's Nathan Rourke on Team Canada, and he follows through on a throw in flag football and breaks his index finger. knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But what does the BC Lions season look like from there on? And that's where I start to wonder is, as much as they want to be in it, and I saw Crosby limping to the locker room and thought about what a difference maker Connor McDavid is, and thought, boy, I don't know if it should be young guys. Anyway, I don't know if that debate is dead in the water because the genie's out of the bottle, but the first thing that came to my mind when I saw Crosby go down.
Well, and I have to confess, I'm like a lot of football fans. I haven't watched a lot of flag football, and I suspect the game is very, very different from the gridiron version. And I've heard, I think it was Joel Lipinski even caused a bit of a stir, and I think he said his words were taken a little bit out of context, but he suggested that it should be people who are focused on flag football, not gridiron football, who should go, and I think he has a reasonable point there. But let's just pretend that CFL players can all go, and they're going to go, or some of them. Is it negotiable at all that we have to stop the season for a month or 3 weeks? We can't play CFL games while some of the best players are at the Olympics, can we?
Yeah, I think we are. I think the decision has basically been made that the season won't be interrupted. What they, I think, want to do, and what I've heard is that they want to try to get an idea from Coach LaPolice, who is the head coach of the Olympic flag football men's team, and to ask him basically what players in the CFL he's going to be interested in, and then from there try to put together the schedule so that it could help a team. Let's say there's 5 players in the CFL that go and play for the gold medal in flag football. Those 5 teams, 5 different teams, it's going to be impossible to give them the buys during the Olympic break, all 5 of them. But if it's only 2 teams, and you can work the schedule around it a little bit and give the BC, let's say it is Nathan Rourke, and you give the BC Lions a bye. He only misses 1 game, and they have to go on. I just don't think you can stop the season completely when there may only be 2 or 3 players. Remember, there's a lot of really good Canadian football players playing in the NFL too. So they're going to be looking at that. And to your point, and Barney has been adamant about this, there's going to be a lot of flag football specialists that are on that team. And I think they should be. I don't think you do it because of, they worked hard so far to do it, so therefore you want to put the best group you can put together to win a gold medal. So let's do that. Let's make that the priority, and not just because they've invested so much time in flag, then they deserve to go, and we're not going to put a better player there because, just because he's a pro. Let's not make that decision that way. But yeah, we'll see how many. I don't think they're going to stop the season, though. They've already talked about that.
And even if the CFL is compromised, which it would be, I'm sure it would be, as far as, players being available, what have you, that's happened in other leagues too. Like in the NHL, I remember their experience in Nagano was actually, people forget their first experience was dreadful. Just the jet lag and players coming back, and some of them who didn't get hurt in the tournament, they just weren't 100% the rest of the year. And then I remember I happened to be in Windsor, Ontario during the 2006 Olympics where Sweden won, and they allowed the Swedish players to go home and have a big party, as they should. They just won a gold medal, for crying out loud. And the Detroit Red Wings were without, like, Nick Lidstrom and a lot of their best players, and they just got thumped out on the West Coast. So I think that even if you're compromised, that doesn't mean, well, we just shut it down. That just means we work with it and try to come up with a better system.
Yeah, exactly. I also think it's a nice platform for the best, 19-year-olds in the country in hockey, and all the other sports in the Olympics, basically in the Winter Olympics, are amateur athletes. I know that a lot are getting paid, and there's different things. And I heard your great debate today about why Canada's medal count is lower than we expect in Winter Olympics. And, to me, that discussion goes beyond just throwing money at it. That's important, and facilities are important. And that's what happened in Vancouver with On the Podium. But it's bigger than that. To me, it starts with the narrative. And Brendan, you and I are guys that need to be pushing the virtues of sport at the young age and how important it is for kids and how it transcends the game and teaches great, aspects of life. And your son or daughter is going to be a better citizen when they participate in sports. And I heard Gladiator talk about it. Colson, I'm calling him Gladiator because
he's thrilled. He's blushing.
But I heard Colson say, kids in Norway are skiing when they're tiny, and that's why when the skiing events happen, they're very good at it and they're winning a lot of medals. And we got to get kids involved. But to me, it's even bigger than just doing it to win medals. It's also doing it because there is tremendous upside to getting kids, especially in team sports, but getting kids in any sport to teach them how to, eat properly and train their bodies properly and learn how it feels when you're uncomfortable in one area and pushing yourself to become better and what it means to be a great teammate. And all of those things creates discipline. And if you have self-discipline, you're going to become a better citizen. Not that you're perfect, but you're going to become a better citizen. So guys like us have to create that narrative more often. We're losing high school teams. We're losing high school sports. We're losing college football teams. I just saw SFU, after getting rid of Simon Fraser University football team, they're now getting rid of the hockey team and other sports. We're losing the sports because people are not hearing enough how important it is in creating great citizens. And that's to me, that's the message that's got to get across.
And not just that, but maybe not so much specialization at such a young age. You can play, I keep hearing from NHL players and retired baseball players, you can play other sports. You don't need to obsess about this one sport. And part of what makes a great Olympic team is that you have athletes in the different sports. Listen, on the one sport where I hope they keep the dream team alive is actually basketball, because I was against that when the U.S. was dominating everybody. But I almost wonder if it's actually been good for the sport worldwide, because now the parity is unbelievable in basketball. There's so many teams that are involved, and eventually teams like Canada, France, Austria, Spain will get the United States. But I totally hear what you're saying. I enjoyed the Olympics as much when it was, I remember 94 in Lillehammer was one of the favorite Olympics I ever saw, when we lost in the shootout, and we didn't really have NHLers on that team except maybe one or two, I think Peter Nedved. This is always a great time. Thanks for this. We'll talk again next week.
Okay, we didn't even get to football. Well, a little flag football, but we're good. Thanks, Brendan. Appreciate it, man. Say hello to Gladiator over there.
I will do so, and I think this is a record for us. We made it through a whole segment without talking CFL football, sort of, but that won't ever happen again. I promise.
Lots of time, my friend. Okay, thank you.
Good stuff. That is press coverage with Glen Suitor. There, I read it right that time. Gladiator saved me on that one. By the way, fact check. This was from Jeffrey, who likes to stir the pot. Crandall was 15 for 26, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions in that 2001 Grey Cup. Not a great completion percentage, but certainly over the 550% that I claimed. You know what? I'm going to have to fact check Jeffrey. I will do that after the break, but if I am wrong, I will stand corrected. More of the Sports Cage coming up after this. You are listening and watching on the Rough Rider Broadcast Network, 620 CKRM.
Hi, it's Perry Nias. 620 CKRM is turning 100 this year. We've been loving all the messages coming in, and now it's your turn. Got a funny story? A favorite memory? Or just want to say congrats, CKRM? We'd love to hear it. Leave a voicemail at 306-546-6230. 306-546-6230. 620 CKRM. 100 years young and still having fun.
620 CKRM on location.
It is back, and this is the 29th annual Willow Bunch Golf Club Auto Lotto. Now, if you want to see what it's all about, get all the details and more, the photos, you can check out the website willowbunch.ca. That's www.willowbunch.ca/golf. And we're going to give out some great prizes. It's going to wrap up Saturday night. We're going to give away $50,000 cash. If you want the vehicle, we'll give you a choice from Nelson GM in Assiniboia. We'll give you $60,000 in lotto cash towards a brand new vehicle. We've also got those, sporty units from Brass and Sons. We've got the snowmobile and the quad. Choice is yours. Make sure you pick them up and get a ticket to have a chance. We're also going to give away $10,000 cash. We've got recreation vehicles, as I mentioned, and a 50-50. Those tickets are going 1 for 10, 5 for 25, 15 for 50. Pick up all your tickets. Help out. Have a chance to win and call 1-866-729-3478. 1-866-729-3478.
Winter in Saskatchewan tests everything, our patience, vehicles, and sometimes our bumpers. From icy parking lot dings to serious highway mishaps, choosing local matters. At Regina Motor Products Collision Center, we're Saskatchewan owned, run, and we drive these roads too. An SGI accredited full-service collision center working on all makes and models. Submit your SGI claim and book your appraisal. It's easy. When you need repairs you can trust, it's neighbors helping neighbors. Regina Motor Products Collision Center, south at Highways 1 and 6 Albert Street, rmpchevrolet.com.
He's gaining on us. Quick, let's hide in the garage.
No. It's stuck. Again.
You said you fixed it.
I meant to. I just never called Busy Bee Doors.
Lift it. Hurry, lift it.
It won't budge. It's busted.
Don't let a broken garage door turn into a horror story. Call Busy Bee Doors. They can fix or replace any commercial or garage door. Busy Bee Doors, the garage door specialists.
Getting in on more of the sports action you want is as easy as playing at sportselect.com. Simply make your picks online, generate your QR code, and lock in your bet at your local Lotto Spot retailer. Then sit back, watch the game, grip your chair, and high-five anyone nearby. Every bet is 100% legal with the chance of winning cash in hand. When you're ready to play, bet on the original. Must be 18 plus to play. Play responsibly.
It's time to go coast to coast with Arash Madani for Smart Investing Solutions. Be smart with your money. Call Brian Gawley at Smart Investing Solutions, 546-2533.
Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz with you on this Thursday edition of the program for Access Communications, trusted in rural Saskatchewan for internet, TV, and home security. And Jeffrey, who likes to beat me up in the comments about the fact-checking. Hey, it's a tie. You were right in that Marcus Crandall had a better than 50% completion percentage in that 01 Grey Cup when he won the MVP. But your stats are wrong, and I'll just leave it at that. We're both wrong. How's that? Tie goes to nobody. We are joined on the line by Arash Madani. And hey, in all the years that you covered for national networks, you covered Olympics. Were you not in Vancouver 2010?
I did 5 Olympic Games. My first one that I covered and worked was London 2012. I went to Vancouver for a week, not in a working capacity, but in a observing, drinking, enjoying capacity. But I did London, Sochi, Rio, Pyeongchang. I missed the 2 COVID games. Then the last one I did was Paris 2024.
Well, it didn't look like you really missed much in... I thought Tokyo looked cool. Beijing didn't look like a place that should ever have Winter Olympics, so it's been refreshing to see on the TV in Italy. You actually see mountains and you see real snow. What was your favorite Olympic moment of all the ones that you got to be at, whether you were there in a working capacity or just as a fan?
That is a great question, Brendan. I mean, look, it's recency bias for sure, but Paris 2024, it was a rainy night at the Olympic Stadium, and I think one of the coolest events that you can watch live is the 4x100 meter relay in track and field. It is human bumper cars, it is chaos, it is sprinting, And so I'm 45 years old. So when I was a teenager, the Donovan Bailey era was just so massive, and it had followed the Ben Johnson thing. So here we come to the Olympic Stadium, and my colleague at the time, camera operator Hugo Regenball, looks at me as we go in. And he said, what's best case scenario here for Canada? Like, is it fifth? And all four of the sprinters, none of them had reached a final. Andre DeGrasse has a bum hamstring. I looked at Hugo, I said, hey, man, best case scenario is eighth. And then on a wet track, these dudes out of nowhere won gold. Like, the hair on my arms is just raised right now just thinking about it. And it was one of the great all-time Canadian sports moments. And it was, Brendan, I'm going to tell you, man, and I mean this sincerely, this is not hyperbole. When Andre did it, I'm 20 rows from the finish line. It felt like it was an out-of-body experience for me. And I'm a no cheering in the press box kind of guy, but it was the out-of-nowhere thing. It was the generation after Donovan and company and all those kinds of things. That was a really kind of special moment.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to follow that rule when you're calling the Olympics, hey, but I know you have to buckle down and do it whenever you're there or you're a credentialed part of the media. Can you still remember all of the members? I'm putting you on the spot of the 96 4x100 relay, because I'm missing one. I can remember there was Donovan, obviously, Glen Roy Gilbert. Was Bruni Surin on that?
Bruni Surin sure was. Blast off, he had carved into his head Robert Esme.
Oh, that's who it was. I was trying to figure out who the last one was. There you go.
Yes.
You beat me to it.
The first one. By the way, are you wearing a Frank McChrystal Regina Rams t-shirt? Is that what that
sure
is?
am. They have an amazing collection. And when I was riding around on the bus last year, because I broadcast their games and I travel around with the team, they have just the amazing t-shirt collection, and I always felt left out. So I've been on a little spree picking them up throughout the off season, and
I like it.
this is just one for the collection. So
sure.
That great mustache that will never be duplicated ever again. You talked about a great moment. We talked about a couple of them from the 4x100. And Vancouver was epic with all the gold medals and all the attention it got from the Americans. And we're not quite doing so well in the medal count this time around. And you accept that with the summer games. You don't accept it so much with the winter games. From what you've seen sitting in Toronto, do you feel like we've had any of those hair-raising moments yet, those goosebump moments? Or if not, do you think there's more to come that could happen? And I'm not just talking about men's Olympic hockey either.
No, I think there have been. I think we're a speed skating nation. I think some of the speed skating team stuff has been great. Mikkel Kingsbury, the King, has been great. Brendan, you said something interesting, and I'm going to call you on it because you probably aren't expecting it. You said that we don't really accept it as a Winter Olympic country, that we're not doing well in the medal count. Let me just tell you something. Get used to it. Canada's in trouble when it comes to winning medals at upcoming Winter Olympics, because the athletes who are winning medals now are the ones in their last Winter Games, and there's no pipeline coming. This is a byproduct of the alumni and the graduates of the Vancouver 2010 hosting of all the funding, of all the resources that were poured in to make sure that we didn't make fools of ourselves as hosts of those domestic games. You look around these sports right now, and who's the next downhill skier? Who's the next figure skater? Who's the next speed skater? On and on you go. There aren't many. David Shoemaker's the CEO of the Canadian Olympic Committee. He's been raising alarm bells. Nobody's been listening. And unless it comes down to more funding that's going to come to some of these federations, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
So what's the answer? Is it more of our tax dollars to prop this up, or is it finding some high-powered lawyer like what Marcel Aubu was with the Own the Podium? And I don't know how much of their success was because of him. He was more the face of it at the time. Or is it a mixture of the two, you think?
No, like there's no money in corporate Canada to really effective. Well, I shouldn't say there's no money. Let me rephrase. There's no appetite from corporate Canada to truly show a real investment into investing in our amateur sport programs and our high performance athletes. There is a window dressing. There is a pretend factor. They want to do as, maybe not as little as possible, but not serious. Let's be honest. They are all corporations that report to quarterly shareholders, and there's a little bit of goodwill that comes 2 weeks every 2 years with the Summer and the Winter Olympics, and that's about it. So when corporate Canada really isn't going to answer the bell, and they've shown they haven't for the last 14 years, 15 years, where else is there to go? Look, you talk about national pride, you talk about unity, you talk about bringing people together, etc. That's what sport does. That's what the Olympics does. There's no divisiveness when it comes to rooting for Team Canada. And so, yeah, you can say, okay, tax dollars, but think about where some of the tax dollars also go. And I think that there are a lot of Canadians who might debate you on where some other programming occurs. I don't think many will debate you on this.
Yeah, you know what? It's hard to say. I don't discount anything of what you're saying, and it does kind of feel like we're drifting back to how it was before Vancouver 2010, because that was really the high water mark, and maybe we're just living off of that and still dining on that. Hey, we haven't talked about it yet, so I want to get to the MLB salary cap talk. There's been a little more chatter about it this week, and there will be all season long, because a lot of people think that we're going to have some kind of doomsday after 2026, and I'm not sure that they're wrong. It looks like there's a collision course here between the MLB Players Union and the owners, and of course the head of the union had to step down this week, Tony Clark, because of some other issues. But when I look at the sport, I personally think that a salary cap would be great for Major League Baseball for a lot of reasons. But I want to cite an example, and I just thought of this. You're a Minnesota Viking fan, aren't you? That's your team?
I am.
Yeah, okay.
That is unfortunately my team, yes.
My condolences. I'm a Denver fan, so it's not a lot better for me usually. But I was going to say, I get NFL'd out anyways. But the point is, when Kirk Cousins signed his contract with the Vikings, it might have been on Bob McCown's show or somebody's show in Toronto, they had a tax expert on who explained that apparently the Jets had made a superior offer, but because of the tax rate in New York being a little bit higher, and Cousins was a resident of Michigan, and Michigan and Minnesota had, or maybe still have, a reciprocal tax agreement. So the net income was about the same on the Vikings offer as per the Jets. And it's like, well, if the money's equal, well, where would you rather play? The Jets or in this amazing new stadium like Minnesota? And I've often wondered if the salary cap has been one of the reasons why, well, we know it's one of the reasons why, but not only has it kept the New York teams in check, it's been an impediment for New York teams having success. And it makes me worry a little bit about the Toronto Blue Jays. I think a salary cap would be good if some of us still cling to the dream of Major League Baseball returning to Montreal and that sort of thing. But getting star players to come play for the Blue Jays is a lot easier when you can give them a bit of a northern living allowance. And I suspect that's why Dylan Cease is getting all the money he's getting, and some other players are getting that money. And I know when Charles Bronfman owned the Montreal Expos, he gave a lot of players bonuses that would be over and above. So if we're living in a salary cap world where the Blue Jays can't have a top 5-6 payroll regularly, that's not a good thing for Blue Jays and their fans, is it?
I don't know. I mean, look, there's so many layers to this. The first thing is there is zero evidence that shows a salary cap will lead to parity across any sport. Reaching the National League Championship Series last year, your Milwaukee Brewers. Winning the World Series in 2015, your Kansas City Royals. Reaching the World Series in 2016, Cleveland. go back, I think 2017 or 2018. I think it's 2018. The Brewers were back in the NLCS. I mean, the biggest issue in the NBA today, a cap league, is what? Tanking. There are more teams wanting to lose than there are more teams wanting to win. You have a salary cap there. I get 18 games, 17 games. The NFL isn't the same as 162, but you can confidently say 5 or 6 teams by Halloween are out of the mix as well. What is a salary cap? It is salary suppression. That's what it is. It is the owners telling the labor, we are not going to pay you. And they hide behind this cloak of parity, competitiveness, when in reality it's not that at all. And you mentioned the Blue Jays. Well, according to the Globe and Mail, last year, the Blue Jays, who had what? You said top 5, top 6 payroll?
That's my understanding. I could be a little off on that, but go ahead.
Nobody talks about the profits that are made when you invest in your company like the Blue Jays did and make a run, and you own the TV network like the Red Sox do, like the Yankees do, like the Nationals do, like the Orioles do, da-da-da-da-da-da. And apparently last year netted the ownership of the Toronto Blue Jays approximately $100 million. So people can say it's a cost. I look at it and I say it's an investment. Maybe Amazon, maybe Google, and maybe Apple have a valuation as a business that skyrockets the way pro sports franchises do. 20 years ago, my Vikings sold for $775 million. The Seahawks are about to sell for $7.5 billion. So they're making money year over year. They're making money on the valuation, and what they want you to believe is that the only way things will be competitive is if we pay that labor less so that we can make more. It's absurd.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying. My take on it is, look, I can live with the salary cap if only there is expanded revenue sharing and also a salary floor, so that it forces some of these lightweight, I would even say pathetic franchises who don't invest in their teams. I'm thinking of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm thinking of the Miami Marlins. I'm thinking of the Tampa Bay Rays. Is there no benefit to maybe creating a system where you at least have a floor and you make some of these lazy franchises get off their you-know-what and actually operate properly, and maybe even put pressure on them to go to a better baseball market if things aren't working where they are?
So it's an interesting question you ask. What is a baseball team? What is a football team? What is a hockey team? To the owner of that franchise, they would tell you that it is their business. To everybody outside of that building, they would tell you it is a public trust. So to the owner of the team, they're looking, what it comes down to is, what is my appetite to win and how hard do I want to work? Because I may not have to work. And I'm still going to make money year over year because of the national TV deal and the merch deals and et cetera, et cetera. Remember, Brendan, these guys played in front of nobody in 2020, and they didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart. Everybody's making money. So the appetite to win and the cost to win and the investment required to win is significant. But every single owner in each of these leagues is not going to rat out the other owner and say, get him out of here, because they're part of this little fraternity. They're part of this club. Okay, we're gonna make a salary floor. Okay, well, in that case, how much more is it going to be than it already is for some of these teams? I don't know. I would just like to be explained how having a floor and a cap will lead to more competitive balance. Because I will tell you this, the NFL has a cap, right? Everybody talks about the cap. It might be the most farcical thing you'll ever see. Patrick Mahomes is owed over $70 million in salary next season. And Kansas City was the team that was the furthest over the cap. Do you know what Kansas City just did this week? They transformed 2/3 of Mahomes' salary for next year into a signing bonus, reduced his base amount, and so the cap figure will only be 1/3 of that 70, but they're paying him the cash up front that won't count against the cap. When the LA Rams won the Super Bowl, 4 years ago, they spent over $100 million on top of the salary cap in cash. So it's the exact same thing. It's a matter of which owner is still willing to spend. There are teams in the NBA that are in the luxury tax. Which teams are willing to spend because it's better off for them if they do, because it means more home games, it means more revenue, it means better franchise valuation, da-da-da-da-da-da. So the cap is just a myth more than anything else.
Yeah, that's a fair point, too. And to your point, we've had a salary cap in hockey for 20 years now, and a Canadian team still hasn't won the Stanley Cup in that time. So your point is well taken. Listen, we'd kick it around some more, but I'm way past my deadline here to take a break. This is awesome. I can't wait to do this with you again, and enjoy the rest of the Olympics. I'm sure we'll be talking about it.
Good to see you, Mr. McGuire.
That is Arash Madani on Coast to Coast on this Thursday edition of the program. For Smart Investing Solutions, be smart with your money. Call Brian Gawley at Smart Investing Solutions, 546-2533. Back to wrap when we come back. You are watching and listening to the Sports Cage on the Rough Rider Broadcast Network, 620 CKRM.
Access is connected where it counts, in your community and in your home. And right now, we're making it more affordable for you to stay connected at the acreage, the cabin, or the farm. With Access Rural Internet for as low as $69.95 for 24 months. Plus, you can add Access Next TV Stream and keep an eye on things with Access Rural Security. Stay connected, stay local. With fast, reliable, homegrown solutions from Access Communications. Visit myaccess.ca to sign up.
620 CKRM on location.
It is back, and this is the 29th annual Willow Bunch Golf Club Auto Lotto. Now, if you want to see what it's all about, get all the details and more, the photos, you can check out the website willowbunch.ca. That's www.willowbunch.ca/golf. And we're going to give out some great prizes. It's going to wrap up Saturday night. We're going to give away $50,000 cash. If you want the vehicle, we'll give you a choice from Nelson GM in Assiniboia. We'll give you $60,000 in lotto cash towards a brand new vehicle. We've also got those, sporty units from E-Brass and Sons. We've got the snowmobile and the quad. Choice is yours. Make sure you pick them up and get a ticket to have a chance. We're also going to give away $10,000 cash. We've got recreation vehicles, as I mentioned, and a 50-50. Those tickets are going 1 for 10, 5 for 25, 15 for 50. Pick up all your tickets. Help out, have a chance to win, and call 1-866-729-3478. 1-866-729-3478.
You've worked hard for years, but when you retire, do you know your options that truly fit you and your family? That's where Chad Reach, Senior Wealth Advisor, and the team at GP Financial Services and Aviso Wealth come in. They help you understand your choices, avoid costly mistakes, and build a retirement plan. Independent advice, local expertise. Before you make the next move, talk to Chad Reach, 306-584-2755.
Mutual funds and other securities are offered through Aviso Wealth, a division of Aviso Financial Inc.
Out on the prairies, some herds are still living like it's 1995, waiting around the corral like they're expecting a landline to ring. Trouble is, it's 2026, and your cattle need water where they are, not where the old hookup happens to be. That's where Keln Solar makes you the hero. With solar livestock watering systems, you can drop a pump just about anywhere. No grid, no trenching, no fuss. Modern tech for modern ranching. Keep the water moving and the herd happy. Keln Solar. They move water because your cows won't. Visit KelnSolar.com.
Get it hot and get it fast. Western Pizza.
been a long day, your feet hurt, your brain is fried, and now supper? You're staring into the fridge, contemplating your options, but your energy says, let's just not. Now imagine golden, crispy pizza loaded with all the Greek favorites. Feta, olives, tangy tomato sauce, fresh veggies, and melted mozzarella. Every bite is like a Mediterranean vacation for your taste buds, and you didn't lift a finger. Western Pizza. Dine in or take out today.
Get it hot and get it fast. Western Pizza.
Text CKRM 306-936-6262 for Prairie Land Rentals. Renting heaters, skid steers, and most power tools for all those winter jobs. And your official Husqvarna snow thrower dealer. Prairie Land Rentals, 600 Albert Street, where you deal with the owner. It's time for the Sports Ticker. Brought to you by Steelcraft Doors Regina. Made in Western Canada for Western Canadians.
Lots happening locally. Prairie Junior Hockey League tonight. Regular season Regina Silver Foxes are in Saskatoon. That's a 7 o'clock puck drop. Prince Albert Timberjacks at Martinsville Chiefs. That starts at 8:15. Saskatchewan Midget AAA. The Yorkton Maulers visiting the Regina Pats, the Pat Canadians. That's an 8 o'clock puck drop tonight. And by the way, with men's curling, I should clarify, Canada beat Norway in the 5-4 final in an extra end in the rematch. So Canada will now advance on to the gold medal game. They will take on Team Bruce Mowat of Great Britain. That will be a noon start on Saturday. So I know many of us will be watching that with added interest. In case you missed it earlier today, Team Canada losing the women's hockey gold medal game to the United States. Megan Keller scoring the winner in overtime in the 2-1 USA victory. They got us in hockey in round one. Will there be a round two rematch in the men's side? We will wait and see. The semifinal for Canada tomorrow morning against Finland. The sports ticker for Steelcraft Doors Regina, made in Western Canada for Western Canada. Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz with you on this edition of the Sportscage. Just want to thank everybody who helped us put this paper model airplane together. John Hodge from 3 Down Nation, Sharky with his NASCAR report, Benny Walchuk with the SJHL report, Regina Thunder head coach Scott McAulay, as well as Arash Madani and Glen Suitor. We will be back in here, Colson and I, tomorrow night for the Friday edition of the Sports Cage. Thanks for listening, everybody, and good night from Regina.
Beat the winter blahs with hot deals from the Harvard Media Winter Auction. Auction is on now.
Hi, it's Cody.
And it's Gloria.
And here are some great Regina items to keep your eye on in the Harvard Media Winter Auction.
$1,000 gift cards for tree removal, gift cards for big steel box storage, a Can-Am quad, and a lot more.